1. Top 10 Weaknesses 1. Parts 10 to 11. Loi critical ve kintuk but kati ko Cecily's lady's maid vande. Trong Part 10. Marianne chi verlay torn glove koi work basket. Dat no vào plain envelope. Niem fong viet den len flap. Jiao cha Agatha. Zoi Agatha hua envelope vào inner compartment ko travelling writing case. Saudor Martha sotien vanoizang Cecily's lady's maid da dane side entrance chuk door ve mot message. Nyung sang Part 11. Martha like gezang Cecily's lady's maid da bit chuk komot small locked compartment. Cause something belonging to Miss Bellrose duk dat ben chong. Hunko I duk titlup la da noi tumtin nai cho Cecily wak lady's maid chuk tadium do tai sao lam zam chat lung. De la loi chuk tip hien central mystery mut logic. Ching impossible knowledge nai zundane bribery of Martha, theft of brass key, attempted access to torn glove, key reveal type climax, mortfun public exposure ko Cecily. No villain kote bit tomtin private machung kong won, duan bo evidence chain mutdo tinke, mukdo, critical, hag sua but book. Sua like chronology ko Part 10, Marianne niem fong glove, Agatha, Huanova travelling writing case, Martha nien tei, wak bit komot item belonging to Marianne de qua ben chong, Martha zoifong. Saudos Cecily's lady's maid, Maidane side entrance. Xing Martha voting wak goi titlo zang, mot item ko Marianne de quavo case. Lady's maid, ding eat 2 guineas, de Martha lend the key. Friday morning Martha lay key. Martha jiao key cho lady's maid. Key saudor den tai Cecily. Humduk de Cecily's maid bit. Churky Martha kokohoi kungkup tumtin. 2. Part 12. Key reveal, futur guanyo vào coincidence. Vande, brass key zoi koi Cecily's reticule, dung look confrontation kan final proof. Dai sao lam zam chat lung, de kong fai continuity contradiction. Nyung la dramatic convenience rozang, heroine da zang kachuent de, hoi dung ko hoi. Coma cues without proof, quanli evidence. Tu quid dink, tus zun accountability. Vive, climax kom nen duk zai quid, by mod vat voting zoi sung san. Nolam zam kamzak Marianne earned the victory. Mukdo, important, kakt sur. Zu fact zang Cecily sahu ki, yung book reveal fai fat sing to heroin-led pressure. Fuang an magnyat, Martha hai zang, ki da duk zao cho Cecily's lady's maid. Marianne hoi Cecily, ko sant sang de Lady Mercer chung kien viet kim cha reticule hai khong. Cecily du choi. Chong luk go lay glove shop statement wak mut personal card de bien ho. Cecily lam lo ki, wak Lady Mercer te ki, ngay hi Cecily mer reticule zui pressure. Nuve reveal van dramatic, nyung kong kon pure accident. 3. Parts 6 to 7. Trin goi mot clue la impossible, zuno chi suspicious van de. Part 6. Marianne kong kai noizang, ko se mang gloved in woman who repaired it. Cecily nghe zo ke hoikdo. Sang Part 7. Cecily hoi, liu woman a, ko written anything down hai home. Narration fanung new te Cecily home te bit statement, ko te don dai. Nyung Cecily huan tuan ko te sui duan zang. Mot witness, ko te viet statement, tai sao lam zam chatlung. Kai mystery overstates the strength of a clue. Viewer attentive, sekam te story dang ep hot teen mot deduction, iu hun tuk te. Mukdo, important. Kak sua, kongoi knowledge dollar impossible. Chigoi no, premature, suspiciously specific, too eager, revealing of how closely Cecily was monitoring Marianne's moves. Visu, Cecily could have guessed that the repairer might put her account in writing. The troubling part was not that the question was impossible. It was that Cecily had asked it before anyone invited her into the process. 4. Part 9. I contain multitudes la anachronism rorang vande, Agatha Noi. I contain multitudes. Story de Hua May 1816. Cum nai ganzut mank ve Walt Whitman. Vertuk Turkey moon hern new. Thai sao lam zam chatlung. một strict regency story, có thể mất immersion chỉ bởi một line quá nổi tiếng và quá sai thời đại. Mức độ important, facts xưa, thay bằng line có cùng wit nhưng period neutral. You underestimate the range of my talents, hoặc I have hidden depths. Không cần đến xưa phần còn lại của scene. 5. Part 12. Cecily's glove shop statement được gọi là final proof, nhưng payoff quá yếu. Vấn đề. Part 7 kết thúc bằng cliffhanger mạnh. Cecily có final proof rằng torn glove thuộc về cô ta. Sang Part 12, statement chỉ xác nhận một similar ivory pair đừng được ban cho Cecily. Marianne có thể dễ dàng bác bỏ bằng logic rằng nhiều women có gloves cùng size và color. Tại sao làm giảm retention? Cliffhanger cuối Part 11 hứa một threat lớn hơn payoff thực tế. Khi final proof sụp đổ quá dễ, viewer có thể cảm thấy bị overpromised. Mức độ important, hike xua, chọn một trong hai hướng A, gam promise. Cuối Part 11 dove to final proof, tanga maker's statement she claimed would settle the question. Hướng B, tang threat. Statement cần có một chi tiết thực sự nguy hiểm, chẳng hạn. Cecily's pair có cùng uncommon size, cùng maker, cùng purchase season, cùng distinctive stitch pattern. Sau đó Marianne vẫn bác bỏ bằng stronger repair history và lining evidence. Hướng A sacked hơn và ít thêm complexity. 6. Part 12. Cecily confession qua hoàn chỉnh. Vấn đề. Cecily giải thích rất rõ toàn bộ psychological motivation. Marianne had less money, fewer gowns, fewer invitations. People still called her dignified. Julian noticed her. Cecily wanted to prove Marianne had tricked him. Tại sao làm giảm realism? Villains dưới social pressure hiếm khi tự phân tích chứng minh hoàn hảo như một developmental editor. Co. Because you were supposed to remain beneath me, rất mạnh. Nhưng phần giải thích sau đó hơi quá complete. Mức độ important. Các xưa, gu confession fragmented. Ví dụ, you had less than I did, less money, fewer gowns, fewer invitations, and still they spoke of your patience as though it made you better than me. Then he noticed you. Marianne tu hoàn thành psychological meaning bằng một câu. So you tried to prove that what he saw in me was false. Cecily không cần confirm toàn bộ bằng một monologue dài. 7. Part 10. Stationer inquiry van hơi procedural vấn đề. Marianne hỏi nhiều câu, man or woman, servant or not, livery, age, full name, address, wrote here or not, said anything else. Kết quả thực tế chỉ là, a woman delivered a sealed note. She knew Marianne's name and squiled. She insisted delivery before noon. Tại sao làm giảm retention? Đây là section có ít emotional change nhất trong final third. Mức độ. Important về pacing, không phải logic. Facts xưa. Root còn ba decisive questions và chuyên nhanh hơn tới Lady Mercer's arrival, cùng calling card. Get the glove before Friday. Đó mới là true hook của Part 10. 8. Part 7. Evidence custody scene sau widow scene làm giảm emotional peak vấn đề. Widow scene là một trong những scene mạnh nhất truyện. Marianne refused to risk another woman's livelihood. Sau đó story tiếp tục khá lâu về việc đến Lady Mercer giải thích transfer statement, transfer ivory strip, lock escritoire, discuss glove location. Tại sao làm giảm emotional impact? Emotional peak bị kéo thành evidence administration. Mức độ nên những đáng sửa để vượt non. Các sửa nên khoảng 10 to 15%. Chỉ cần giữ. Marianne explicitly transfers widow's statement and false strip to Lady Mercer. Lady Mercer locks both in escritoire. Lady Mercer reveals Cecily had already asked about a possible written account. Không cần đến nhiều dialogue quanh custody. 9. Part 13. Ending van giải thích message hơi nhiều vấn đề. Story đã có visual closure hoàn chỉnh, framed torn glove, pale grey gloves, bare hand. Julian takes her hand only after she offers it. Nhưng trước final image, narration van giải thích. Questions before decisions. Protection does not mean obedience. Dignity existed before Duke. Kak message dung, nhưng viewer đã hiểu. Tại sao làm giảm emotional impact? Một ending mạnh cần để image tiếp tục sống sau khi narration dừng. Over-explanation làm giảm restraint. Mức độ, nhưng quan trọng để polish lên 9/5 plus. Các xưa, cắt khoảng 10 to 15% thematic exposition of part 13. Không dung proposal hoặc final hand image. 10. Part 12. Chaperone propriety ở đoạn cuối hơi mơ hồ vấn đề. Sao public accountability, narration nói. At last, only Julian remained nearby. Không hoàn toàn rõ Agatha hoặc Lady Mercer vẫn ở trong sight hay không. Tại sao làm giảm realism? Story đã rất cẩn thận với open doors, ant present, footman within sight, proper morning calls. Một ambiguity ngay trước love confession, hơi lệch với standard ching story tu đặt ra. Mức độ accusation. Các xưa, thêm một clause. Agatha and Lady Mercer remained in the adjoining room, near enough for propriety and far enough for privacy. 2. Priority Fix List Critical 1. Parts 10 to 11. Impossible Knowledge Chain. Phải sửa chuộc mọi rewrite các. Không được giữ current version trong đó Cecily's maid, bit locked compartment contents, mà không có source. Important 2. Part 12. Remove accidental keydrop dependence. Final justice phải xuất phát to confrontation, not coincidence. 3. Parts 6-7. Reframe impossible clue. Không được exaggerate evidence strength. 4. Part 9. Remove book de zoo regency immersion. 5. Part 12. Fix weak. Final proof payoff cliffhanger và payoff phải tương xứng. 6. Part 12. Restrain Cecily's confession. Shoe emotional truth, zam self-analysis. 7. Part 10. Compress stationer inquiry de goy card, trở true centerpiece. Optional 8. Part 7. Compress evidence custody section 9. Part 13. Trim thematic explanation 10. Part 12. Clarify chaperone proximity 3. Part by part, revision, map, part 1. Keep SIS, concord sur material, opening de lamdu, hook, humiliation, torn glove, Duke notice, heroine dignity, exact date, chaperone propriety, cumnane over edit. Part 2. Keep as gift scene what don't taught. Cum co continuity issue, cum kun tongue suffering what dialogue. Part 3. Keep ASIS agency raw. Heroine answers before Duke arrives. Mrs. Vane duxeed. Humkun sur. Part 4. Keep ASIS £50 clue. De duxur dung. De la clean mystery beat. Cum dung vào core exchange. No one has produced evidence that I accepted money from anyone. So do. My dear, no one said it was £50. De la canonical version faizu. Part 5. Keep as mystery, romantic fear, anonymous note for torn glove summons deo taught, home Kundan rewrite. Part 6. Revise lightly due, public theft accusation, false ivory strip. Marianne refuses to flee. Julian does not blindly believe either side. Marianne sets evidence plan. Sua duinyat, dambao later. Part 7 comes in Zai Cecily's knowledge of a possible written statement, new impossible. Part 6 itself, Kundan major surgery. Part 7, revise lightly but book Sua, narration surrounding Cecily's knowledge of statement. Nen Suetem, compress Lady Mercer custody discussion. Zhu Nguyen, exact glove retrieval, widow examination, blue-gray cotton, cream silk lining. Marianne protecting widow, explicit statement signing, explicit transfer to Lady Mercer. Part 8. Keep AS. De la Mot Chung strongest supporting character parts. Home Kundan tame tension. Home Kundan tame mystery. Marianne protects widow. Lady Densmore finds courage. Part 9. Revise lightly Chikundan. Remove. I contain multitudes. Kotethe. You underestimate me. Wak, I have my surprises. Cum sua trust rupture. Cum root ngun confrontation. Cum tem duke groveling. Part 10. Revise heavily. De la part ching kundan sur. Current problem, Cecily's maid appears to know private case information without a source. Required rewrite order, scene 1. Stationer inquiry compressed. Lady Mercer arrives. Calling card revealed. Get the glove before Friday. Scene 2. Marianne retrieves real torn glove. Seals it. Writes full name across flap. Gives envelope to Agatha. Agatha locks envelope inside traveling writing case. Martha is present long enough to witness that something belonging to Marianne has been locked in the case. Martha leaves. Later, Cecily's lady's maid comes to side entrance. Martha is questioned. Martha confirms that something belonging to Marianne has been locked inside. Lady's maid offers 2 guineas for access to the key. Martha does not yet confess this to Marianne. End hook. Marianne notices Martha's fear after the visit. Now, knowledge source is valid. Part 11. Revise heavily required confession continuity. Martha must say she saw Marianne give a sealed envelope to Agatha. Saw Agatha lock it in the case. Later told Cecily's lady's maid that something belonging to Marianne was inside. Lady's maid offered 2 guineas for the key. Friday morning, Martha took it. A little after 9, she handed it over. Conduct de lady's maid know first. Preserve. Heroine does not accuse without proof. Poverty explains fear, but does not erase wrongdoing. Marianne sends 5 words. I am asking you to come. Julian arrives. What do you want me to do? Marianne tells him to stand beside her, but not speak unless needed. Cecily claims new proof. Part 12. Revise moderately cum rewrite tuanbo climax. Chisio bon diem. 1. Key reveal. Home de key dernzan, zoi v coincidence. 2. Glove shop, statement jam claim huak tang danger, nain chont zam claim. 3. Cecily confession root ngan the fragment. 4. Clarify propriety after others leave. Ju Agatha, huak Lady Mercer within sight. Everything else should remain. Part 13. Revise light lai ju. 3-month time jump. Consequences. Framed glove with permission. Proposal. Ring. Chapel wedding. Final shared room image. Cat 10-15% thematic explanation. Comtame children. Pregnancy. Huak sequel bait. 4. Emotional improvement planner. Female pain. Humkundan tang so lung suffering scenes. Marianne de Chiu Du. Social invisibility. Reduced means. Public humiliation. Accusation of manufactured poverty. Rumor of taking money. Trust betrayal from Julian. Diukundan lam la tang specific emotional precision. Kum tang misery. Strongest pain should remain. Cecily turns Marianne's poverty into alleged manipulation. Dollar wound so hern vik begoila poor. Recommendation. Trong Part 6. Zoo focus vamot emotional horror duinyat. Marianne realizes Cecily is telling society that even her shame was calculated. Home tame accusation mei. B. Duke protection kumkan lam Julian mang hern bang rank wak public speech. Angda du powerful. Diukan tang la contrast between old protection and learned protection. Chirk Part 9 Julian. Notices. Acts. Investigates. Saw Part 9 Julian. Asks. Waits. Comes only when invited. Stands where Marianne asks. Ninbalve kak microbeats ne he sur. He does not touch evidence without permission. He does not demand location of glove. He asks, what do you want me to do? He remains silent in climax. Comtem dramatic rescue. C. Public humiliation Part 6 da dumang. Comkundan lam crowd cruel hern. Comkundan applause, laughter, wak cartoon mockery. Pain, named into. 12 chairs arranged for a supposed private family clarification. Witnesses already present. Heroine realizes the scene was prepared. Accusation attacks her dignity. Do la du. D. Mystery. Home tame clue. Current mystery. De kadu. Anonymous note. False ivory strip. Widow repair history. Calling card. Bribed missing key. Real glove. Việc cần làm là clean the path. Every clue phải trả lời được. Ai tao, ai thấy, ai dù, ai truyền. Khi nào, character nào biết, tại sao họ biết. Đặc biệt, part 10-11 phải hoàn toàn airtight. Romantic tension không cần tăng physical intimacy. Romantic tension mạnh nhất khi Julian restrains himself. Nên dù. Julian pauses before placing cloak, asks before seeing evidence, asks before acting, remains silent in final confrontation, asks permission before framing torn glove, does not touch Marianne's hand until she offers it. Đó chính là fantasy fulfillment phù hợp audience. F. Emotional justice. Justice hiện tốt, nhưng sẽ mạnh hơn nếu final proof không rời khỏi reticule ngẫu nhiên. Mục tiêu, Marianne phải force truth into a position where it cannot hide. Ví dụ, Martha establishes transfer to Cecily's maid. Marianne asks Cecily whether she will deny receiving the key. Cecily denies. Marianne requests Lady Mercer witness examination of her reticule. Cecily resists. Her attempt to retrieve another document reveals the key. Dela earned justice. G. Ending closure. Home tame content. Chỉ cần, consequences shown, proposal, marriage, framed glove, bare hand. Julian took it only when she offered it. Đó là complete thematic closure. 5. Retention improvement. Plan part 1, comb sur hook. Current opening, the strongest version. Part 2, không cần cliffhanger mạnh hơn. Emotional curiosity do. Marianne fears wanting to be noticed again. Part 3, end hook taut. Cecily is calculating, not merely jealous. Ju. Part 4, excellent reveal. Cecily knows £50. Ju Nguyen. Part 5, excellent end hook. Bring the torn glove with you. Home sore. Part 6, strong midpoint. Cliff end. Marianne possesses false strip and declares she will no longer protect Cecily from questions. Ju. Part 7. Current ending eo hern kak parts kak, vì Cecily knows about statement, không phải impossible clue, sur hook time. Cecily was not merely spreading lies, she was monitoring every attempt Marianne made to test them. Curiosity gap. How closely was she watching, and through whom? Part 8, strong hook. Julian may have secretly investigated Marianne. Home sewer. Part 9, strong black point. No stronger hook needed. Part 10, kuntang tok. Stationer inquiry, nên chi chim quang 20 to 25% part. True hook phải là, get the glove before Friday. Sau đó, Marianne moves glove. Martha witnesses. Cecily's maid contacts Martha, end with Martha's fear. Part 11, strong emotional hook. I am asking you to come. Keep. But confession must be logically clean. End cliffhanger should not overpromise. Final proof. Unless part 12 can deliver a serious threat. Safer phrasing. I have a statement from the shop that sold the pair 3 seasons ago. Then end. Now show us the glove. Still strong. Part 12. Use a clean 5-step escalation. Rumor origin. Calling card. Martha's confession. Key possession exposed. Real glove plus false strip plus widow statement. Then Mrs. Vane and motive. Do not let evidence pile become confusing. Part 13, no cliffhanger. Closure only. Trim thesis, preserve image. 6. Realism improvement plan 1. Cecily's maid, knowing case information, de la biggest realism failure. Zur exact source. Komduk zung vague implication, rang villain. Somehow new. 2. Brass key falling at exactly the right moment, feels theatrical. Suathang pressured reveal. 3. Cecily's confession. Current version, hoe qua articulate. Under stress, people usually deny, fragment, justify, contradict themselves. Sua confession theo fragmented rhythm. 4. Glove shop, final proof. A generic statement about a similar pair is too weak to justify the phrase final proof. Reduce claim or strengthen document. Prefer reduce claim. 5. I contain multitudes. Remove completely. No defense. This is a clear 1816 immersion break. 6. modern emotional diction, không phải major failure, nhưng một số phrasing hơi contemporary. Intent does not change what was done to me. I am trying not to make accusation do the work of evidence. Nên giữ emotional clarity, nhưng soften hoàng làm dialogue archaic. 7. Story quality improvement, plan emotional impact current. Khoảng 9.5. Để giữ hoặc tăng, không thêm suffering, không thêm speeches. Strengthen restraint. Trim repeated explanations. Make final justice heroine earned rather than coincidence earned. Target 9697. Retention potential current. Huang 92. Kun. Shorten stationer inquiry. Improve Part 7 ending hook. Make Part 11 cliffhanger proportionate. Simplify evidence presentation in Part 12. Target 949.5. Story structure current. Huang 9.2. Biggest damage comes from impossible knowledge chain. Sewer, Part 10 chronology. Part 11 confession. Part 12 key reveal. Target 9.5 plus. Ending satisfaction current. Huang 9.7. Home kundan tame. Chi trim explanation. Target maintain 9.798. Human value current 9.7. Home kundan tame moral lessons. Preserve widow protection. Lady Densmore courage. Martha consequence without destruction. Julian accountability. Cecily proportional social consequence. Target maintain 9.7 plus. Realism current. Huang 9.1. Cunnan eliminate impossible knowledge. Remove I contain multitudes. Reduce coincidence. Restrain villain confession. Clarify final chaperone proximity. Target 9.5 plus 8. Logic, continuity, and timeline revision map critical immiscio 1. Impossible knowledge in parts 10 to 11 earlier fact. Part 10. Marianne privately removes torn glove from work basket, seals it, gives it to Agatha, and Agatha locks it in traveling writing case. Later conflicting fact. Part 11. Martha says Cecily's lady's maid already knew. There was a small locked compartment. Something belonging to Marianne had been put inside. Why impossible? No access source is established. Canonical version to preserve. Marianne personally moves glove. Glove goes into sealed envelope. Marianne writes full name across flap. Agatha locks envelope inside traveling writing case. Martha becomes bribed. Martha steals key. Key goes through Cecily's maid. Key reaches Cecily. Glove remains untouched and sealed. Part to rewrite heavily. Part 10. Part to update heavily. Part 11. Part to update moderately. Part 12. Corrected chronology. Part 10. Marianne retrieves glove. Seals it. Gives it to Agatha. Agatha locks it in traveling case. Martha witnesses enough to know an item belonging to Marianne was placed inside. Later, Cecily's lady's maid visits side entrance. Martha lets slip or confirms that something belonging to Marianne is locked inside. Lady's maid offers 2 guineas for access to key. Martha conceals the offer. Part 11. Friday morning, Martha steals key. Gives it to Cecily's lady's maid. Key disappears. Marianne questions Martha. Martha confesses the full chain. Part 12. Cecily's possession of key becomes logically possible. Important issue 2. Part 6-7 statement knowledge earlier fact. Part 6. Marianne openly says she will consult repairer. Later overclaim. Part 7. Narration implies Cecily could not possibly know a statement might exist. Canonical version to preserve that Cecily closely monitors Marianne's investigation. Corrected interpretation. Cecily could guess a written statement might exist. The suspicious point is how quickly she asked, how specifically she focused on written evidence, how closely she followed Marianne's next moves. Parts to revise only. Part 7. No downstream continuity update required. Important issue 3. Accidental key reveal Earlier fact, Part 11, Martha proves key went to Cecily's maid. Current Part 12 event, key falls accidentally from Cecily's reticule. Canonical version to preserve Cecily must possess key at climax. Corrected reveal recommended sequence. Martha testifies. Cecily denies ever possessing key. Marianne asks whether Cecily will permit Lady Mercer to witness the contents of her reticule. Cecily refuses. She attempts to retrieve her shop statement or calling card. The scratched brass key becomes visible. Lady Mercer or Agatha identifies it before anyone handles it. Key is then tested in traveling case. This gives Marianne causal agency. Important 4. Historical anachronism earlier, setting London, May 1816. Problematic Part 9 line, I contain multitudes. Canonical version to preserve Agatha's dry wit. Corrected line use. You underestimate the range of my talents. No later update required. Important and Epstew 5. Glove shop statement. Current Part 11 promise. Cecily has final proof. Current Part 12 payoff, only a statement confirming a similar pair was sold. Corrected continuity. Change Part 11 language. Do not make Cecily promise objective final proof. Use. I have a statement from the shop that sold the pair 3 seasons ago. Then, now show us the glove. No structural contradiction remains. Important Ipsu 6. Cecily's confession realism preserve core motive. Marianne was supposed to remain beneath her. Cecily resented Marianne's dignity and Julian's attention. Rewrite reduce full self-analysis. Corrected emotional sequence. Cecily blurts. You had less than I did. Less money, fewer gowns, and still they praised you. Then he noticed you. Marianne says, so you needed what he saw in me to be false. Cecily's silence or broken denial confirms enough. Object continuity. After revision torn glove, no change required. Its trajectory is excellent. Marianne workbasket. Examination. Workbasket sealed envelope. Agatha's locked case. Public reveal. Julian, by Marianne's choice framed with permission. Pale grey gloves, no change required. Anonymous note, no change required. False ivory strip, no change required. Widow statement, no change required. Lady Densmore statement, no change required. Calling card, no change required. Brass key, must preserve exact revised path. Agatha's dressing gown pocket. Martha Pike, Cecily's lady's maid, Cecily public discovery, tested in Agatha's travelling writing case. No other holder may be inserted without explicit transfer. Timeline after revision, no major timeline rewrite needed. The current day sequence remains valid. Only ensure Part 10 events occur in clear order. Morning stationer, Lady Mercer visit, afternoon glove transfer, Martha sees case, later side entrance visit from Cecily's maid. Friday morning, theft, handoff, discovery, confession. Friday evening, final, accountability, pregnancy, chilled injury, travel, relationship, no revision required. There are no pregnancies, no children, no injuries, no illness, no impossible recovery, no impossible cross-country travel, no changing from family relationship, no title inconsistency. These areas should remain untouched. 9. Final revision goal day dat decisively chain 9 for publication ready. Ban revised for Huantang Dung Kak Dio Kien Sao. Luai Bo Huan Tuan, impossible knowledge contradiction of parts 10 to 11. Home day final justice Futuk Vamut Ki Ding Ke Zui Sung San. Reframe Cecily's statement knowledge of part 7, Tang suspicious, Hong Fai impossible. Luai Bo, I contain multitudes, Hoi part 9. Jam Muk overpromise, Kwa final proof, a part 11, Wak Dang Suk Mang Tuk Kwa document. Root Ngan Cecily's confession, De Tu Nien Hern. Root stationer inquiry, De calling card reveal, De Nyang Hern. Nen Nye part 7, Sao widow scene. Trim thematic explanation of Part 13. Dù nguyên nhân phần đã mạnh. Không over-reiterate Part 1, Part 4, Part 8, hoặc trust rupture of Part 9. Mục tiêu kỹ thuật sau revision nền. Emotional impact, 9.6 plus retention potential, 9.4 plus story structure, 9.7 human value, 9.7 plus realism, 9.5 logic and continuity, 9.6 critical logic coefficient. 1. Điều quan trọng nhất là không phá những gì đang hoạt động. Story này không cần thêm plot, thêm suffering, thêm villainy hay thêm romance, nor cần cleaner causality, tighter mystery logic, less coincidence, slightly stronger historical discipline, và more restraint at the ending. Chỉ cần sửa đúng những điểm đó, base quality hiện tại hoàn toàn có khả năng chuyển từ một bản giàu subs nhưng bị coefficient khóa ở ngâu thành một bản đủ sức vượt 9 và sẵn sàng xuất bản. By 10 the next morning, London had already invented 3 reasons why the Duke of Caldemere had left Lady Wexford's house before supper, and Marianne suspected none of them involved the truth, according to one caller who sent a card without daring to call in person. His Grace had been offended by the music. According to another note, he had received urgent news from Alderwick Hall. A third suggested he had simply grown bored. Marianne almost admired society's determination to protect itself from an obvious conclusion. Julian Ashcombe had left because he no longer wished to remain in a room where cruelty had been mistaken for amusement. That explanation was simple and therefore unacceptable. Marianne sat in Agatha's morning room with untouched tea cooling beside her. The torn ivory glove lay on the small table near her hand. The split seam at the right forefinger had widened during the carriage ride home, though the old blue-grey cotton repair near the thumb remained unchanged. The cream silk lining showed through the opening. She had removed the glove the moment she reached her bedroom, then brought it downstairs that morning without knowing why. Perhaps because hiding it had already caused enough trouble. Perhaps because Julian's quiet question in Lady Wexford's entrance hall had made the object feel less like a private disgrace and more like evidence of something she had not yet named. Agatha stood near the mantel with 4 cards in one hand and an expression usually reserved for badly behaved servants and overcooked fish. Lady Mercer, Mrs. Belham. Lady Densmore, Lady Wexford. Marianne looked at the cards. How gratifying. I had not realized humiliation improved one's social calendar. You should not joke, then I shall brood. It is always more fashionable. Agatha ignored that and opened Lady Wexford's note again. She regrets the unfortunate circumstances. How unfortunate for the circumstances? Marianne, does she mention Cecily? No. Does she acknowledge what was said? No. Then her regret has remarkable manners. It has entered the room without introducing itself. Agatha folded the note sharply. Marianne lowered her gaze to the torn glove. She did not feel angry in the way she expected. Anger would have been easier. Instead, she felt exposed. The insult itself had been familiar. Cecily had spent years turning small differences into social truths. Marianne's altered gown, Marianne's reduced circumstances, Marianne's delayed invitations. None of it was new. What was new was that a duke had seen it. Worse, he had seen Marianne conceal her hand after Cecily looked at the glove. He had noticed the moment shame became movement. The butler appeared at the door. His Grace, the Duke of Caldemere, has called. Agatha went perfectly still. Marianne did not. She only looked at the glove beside her tea. Show him into the drawing room, Agatha said. The butler withdrew. Agatha turned on Marianne. You are pale. How observant. Do not become difficult now. Now seems the most appropriate time. Would you like me to refuse him? Marianne considered that. The answer came too quickly. No. Agatha's brows rose. Marianne stood. But you will remain. Obviously. The drawing-room door stood open when Julian entered. He bowed first to Agatha, then to Marianne. In daylight, he seemed more controlled than he had beneath Lady Wexford's chandeliers. Less severe, perhaps, though Marianne suspected that was only because no one was being cruel enough to earn his attention. Formalities were exchanged. Agatha asked after his journey home. Julian answered that it had been uneventful. Marianne wondered whether powerful men always lied so politely about sleepless nights. A servant entered with a message regarding a delivery at the rear entrance. Agatha frowned, apologized, and stepped out only long enough to deal with it. The door remained open. A footman stood visible in the hall. Propriety was satisfied, though Marianne suspected propriety would have preferred a more interesting scandal. Julian looked at her. You are angry with me. That is an efficient beginning. I thought honesty might save time. In that case, yes. He accepted this without surprise. Because I spoke to Miss Harrow. Because you turned a private insult into a public event. His gaze held hers. It was already public. Not in the same way. Marianne moved toward the chair, but did not sit. Before you spoke, Cecily had humiliated me. After you spoke, everyone watched to see whether I would be grateful for rescue. Julian was silent. Did you prefer that I remain quiet? He asked. No. The answer came immediately. His expression changed slightly. Then I am confused. That may be good for you. A faint pause. I have not often been told so. Then your position has protected you from useful experiences. To her surprise, the corner of his mouth almost moved. You objected to my defense, but you did not wish me to ignore what happened. Correct. And you expect me to understand the distinction. Eventually. This time, the almost smile was unmistakable. It disappeared quickly. That is why I came. Marianne stilled. To understand, to apologize. She had not expected the word. Julian continued before she could answer. Last night, I assumed that being seen was necessarily better than being ignored. I did not consider that attention can also be a form of exposure. The quietness of the sentence made it more difficult to dismiss. Marianne looked toward the open doorway. The footman remained in the hall, facing away. You thought about this after I left? During the carriage ride home? And afterward? Yes. She looked back at him. That sounds uncomfortable. It was. Good. I suspected you might say that. The dry note in his voice almost disarmed her. Almost. He reached toward the small parcel on the table beside him. Marianne had not noticed it before. Plain tissue, no ribbon, no jeweler's box, no ostentation. I brought something. Her body tightened before she could prevent it. Julian saw. Of course he did. You need not accept it. He placed the parcel on the table between them and unfolded the tissue. Inside lay a pair of pale gray gloves. Fine kid, understated. Beautiful without being showy. Marianne stared at them. No, Julian did not move. No, I cannot accept those. Very well. The ease of the answer irritated her. You agree too quickly. Would refusal be more convincing if I argued? Most men in your position would. That does not recommend it. Marianne looked down at the gloves again. You cannot give me expensive things because my own glove is torn. I agree. Then why are they here? He was quiet for one beat. Because last night you hid your hand as though the damage belonged to you rather than the glove. I thought you should have the choice not to hide it. Marianne could not answer. Julian's gaze dropped, not to the gloves he had brought, but to the ivory one she had carried from the morning room and now held loosely in her lap. Some time after entering, she had picked it up without noticing. Her fingers closed around it. "I am not asking you to replace it," he said. "You do not know what you are asking. That is possible. You know nothing about me. I know you left a room rather than beg to be treated well in it." Marianne's breath caught. "You make one act sound like a character." Perhaps because character is often visible in small acts, or perhaps because you notice too much. "So I have been told." "By whom?" "People with more to conceal than you." She looked at him then. There was no mockery in his face. No pity either. That mattered more than she wanted it to. "You think I have nothing to conceal?" "No." How reassuring. "I think you conceal what most people display and display what most people hide." Marianne frowned. That sounds suspiciously like a compliment. "I will try to be less obvious next time." Agatha returned before Marianne could answer. She paused at the doorway, saw the pale grey gloves, saw Julian, saw Marianne still holding the torn ivory one, and chose the wisdom of saying nothing. Julian rose. "Mrs. Bellrose." He bowed. "Miss Bellrose." Marianne stood as well. "Your Grace." His gaze touched the pale grey gloves still lying between them. "You have not accepted them." "No, you may not." "I may return them." "You may." "You seem determined to remove all opportunities for me to be offended." "Not all. I suspect I could manage several more if given time." Marianne almost smiled. He saw that too, and mercifully did not mention it. At the door, he stopped. "One thing more." She waited. "Whether you keep them or not, do not mistake yourself for something that needs mending merely because others have studied the seam." Then he left. Marianne remained standing until the sound of the front door faded. Agatha crossed the room and looked at the grey gloves. "What did he want?" Marianne stared at the place where Julian had stood. "I am not certain." "That is not like you." "No." She looked down at the torn glove in her hand, then at the pale grey pair he had left without forcing acceptance. The previous night, being noticed, had no longer felt entirely like danger. This morning it felt more dangerous still, because some small part of Marianne had begun to want it again. The following afternoon, the torn ivory glove lay inside the work basket beside Marianne's bedroom window, exactly where she had placed it after Julian's call. The split seam at the right forefinger remained open. The blue-grey cotton repair near the thumb had not changed. Through the damaged seam, the worn cream silk lining still showed. Marianne had neither mended it nor discarded it. She had simply put it away, though she suspected that was not the same as forgetting it. On the chair near her dressing table rested the pale grey gloves the Duke of Caldemere had left behind. They had remained untouched since the previous morning. Marianne stood between the work basket and the chair, as though one object represented pride and the other temptation. "You have been staring at those gloves for several minutes," Agatha said from the doorway. Marianne did not turn. "I am considering whether staring at them counts as accepting them. I should think wearing them would be more decisive." "That is precisely the difficulty." Agatha entered and examined the grey gloves. "They are tasteful. That makes matters worse. Would vulgar embroidery have protected your dignity?" "Possibly. I could have rejected them on aesthetic grounds." Agatha gave her a long look. "You are going to Lady Mercer's viewing this afternoon." "Yes. Your ivory pair is damaged. One glove is damaged. A distinction that will comfort everyone who sees your bare right hand." Marianne finally turned. "You believe I should wear His Grace's gift?" I believe you should decide whether refusing kindness merely because someone else might call it charity gives too much authority to people you claim not to respect. Marianne went still. Agatha lifted one shoulder. I am capable of wisdom in small quantities. How alarming! Do not become sentimental. It will ruin us both. Marianne looked again at the pale grey gloves. Julian had not demanded gratitude. He had not asked whether she liked them. He had not even remained to see what she would do. He had left the choice behind with the gift. That was what unsettled her. She had spent years learning to distrust kindness that came with witnesses, obligations, or future reminders. This had come with none. Very well, she said. Agatha raised her brows. You will wear them. Marianne picked up the right glove. I will wear them because I refuse to let another person make accepting kindness shameful. Agatha's expression softened. That sounds almost healthy. Do not spread it about. Lady Mercer's private viewing rooms occupied the floor above a fashionable print cellar on Bond Street, where paintings had been arranged for a small circle of invited guests before public sale. The rooms were bright, but not crowded. A landscape stood on an easel near the windows. Two portraits faced each other across the main gallery, with such solemn disapproval that Marianne suspected the dead were no more agreeable than the living. Lady Mercer greeted her warmly. Miss Bellrose, I am glad you came. Marianne accepted the offered hand. I hope not merely kind. Lady Mercer's eyes sharpened with recognition. No, not merely kind. The distinction mattered. Marianne inclined her head. Beside her, Agatha relaxed by a degree. Cecily stood near a painting of a moonlit harbour with Lady Wexford. A few steps behind them, Mrs. Vane held a folded shawl over one arm. She was plainly dressed, quiet, and so unobtrusive that Marianne remembered her only after seeing her again. Cecily's gaze moved immediately to Marianne's hands. How pretty, she said. New, are they? Marianne looked down at the pale grey gloves. Yes, how fortunate. The pause before the word was delicate. I had heard His Grace was developing an unusual interest in charitable causes. Lady Wexford stiffened slightly, but did not intervene. Marianne met Cecily's eyes. Then perhaps you should apply. Agatha coughed into her hand. Cecily's smile sharpened. I fear I lack your experience in receiving assistance. Marianne felt the old instinct to withdraw. It lasted one heartbeat, and I fear you overestimate yours in giving it. Silence followed, not the cruel silence from Lady Wexford's drawing room. This one belonged to Cecily because she had not expected an answer. Mrs. Vane looked up with a brief, startled expression, then lowered her gaze again. Cecily recovered. You have become bold. No. Marianne looked toward the moonlit harbour. I have merely stopped helping you misunderstand me. Lady Mercer approached before Cecily could respond and drew Marianne toward another painting. The conversation moved on. But Marianne knew something had changed. She had not needed Julian to arrive. She had not needed anyone to defend her. She had answered for herself, and the room had survived. Nearly half an hour later, the Duke of Caldemere was announced. Marianne did not turn immediately. She told herself this was because she was studying a ruined abbey beneath an excessive number of storm clouds. The fact that she had not been interested in the painting until his name was spoken was irrelevant. Julian greeted Lady Mercer, Lady Wexford, and several others before his gaze found Marianne. It dropped briefly to her hands. Nothing in his face changed, yet she knew he had seen the gloves. Cecily knew it too. Your Grace, Cecily said as he approached. Miss Bellrose has caused quite a sensation with her new gloves. Marianne looked at her. Cecily smiled sweetly. I was only admiring them. Julian stopped beside Marianne. I am glad they fit. The words were quiet, direct, unembarrassed. Cecily's expression tightened. Marianne felt every nearby listener become more attentive. She could have been angry with Julian for confirming the gift publicly. Instead, she heard the deliberate simplicity of his tone. No secrecy, no apology, no implication that she owed him anything. They do, Marianne said. Julian looked at her. And was the choice presumptuous? Cecily blinked. He had asked Marianne, not the room, not Lady Wexford, not Agatha. Marianne considered him, a little. I suspected as much, but not entirely. Something eased in his face. That is unexpectedly generous. Do not become accustomed to it. I will guard against hope. Marianne looked back at the painting. Julian followed her gaze. You disapprove of what? The Abbey. The sky is trying too hard. He studied the canvas solemnly. The clouds are behaving desperately. Marianne laughed before she could prevent it. The sound surprised her more than anyone. Julian turned his head slightly. For the first time since she had met him, he smiled without restraint. It changed his face in a way she had not prepared for. Marianne looked away. Across the room, Cecily was watching them. Not wounded, not yet, calculating. Marianne's laughter faded. Julian noticed. What is it? Nothing. His gaze followed hers towards Cecily, but Marianne spoke before he could draw conclusions. Do not. He looked back at her. Do not what I need. For one moment, neither spoke. Then Julian inclined his head. Very well. The answer was immediate, no argument. Marianne felt the smallest easing in her chest. Later, as guests began moving toward the staircase, Julian found her beside the landing where Agatha waited only a few steps away. You answered Miss Harrow before I arrived, he said. Marianne looked at him. You sound surprised. No, disappointed. Why would I be disappointed? Perhaps you preferred the opportunity to rescue me. Julian's expression became unexpectedly serious. I would be disappointed if you believed protection required helplessness. The words settled between them. Marianne looked down at the pale grey gloves covering her hands. Yesterday, she had feared wearing them would make her appear dependent. Instead, she had worn them while defending herself. The realization was small, but it altered something. You notice too much, she said. You have mentioned that. I may continue. Then I will try to deserve the complaint. Agatha joined them, signaling that the carriage had arrived. Marianne offered Julian a formal farewell. He bowed. Nothing more passed between them. Yet as she descended the stairs, Marianne understood that the danger had changed. Cecily's cruelty at Lady Wexford's first gathering had been casual because she had believed Marianne would accept it. Today, Marianne had answered. Julian had noticed that too. And when Marianne glanced back once, from the entrance hall, she saw Cecily standing at the top of the stairs, watching her with the fixed attention of someone who had stopped underestimating an opponent. The following morning, a sealed note from Lady Mercer arrived before 10 and altered the shape of Marianne's day before breakfast had properly begun. Agatha read it once, frowned, and handed it across the table without comment. Marianne broke the seal and found only 6 lines, each written with unusual care. By the time she reached the end, the tea beside her had gone untouched. The rumor was simple. His Grace, the Duke of Caldemere, had given money to Miss Marianne Bellrose after Lady Wexford's gathering. Some said he had quietly settled family debts. Others said he had offered assistance out of pity. One version named an exact sum, £50. Marianne read the amount twice. Across from her, Agatha set down the butter knife. We have no debts of that sort. I know. There is the coal account, which is not extraordinary, and the dressmaker's alteration, which is not scandal. Agatha looked offended. It may become one if she continues charging for every invisible stitch. Marianne did not smile. Her attention remained on Lady Mercer's note. "Did His Grace give you money?" Agatha asked. Marianne looked up. "No, I know he did not. I am asking because I would like to hear you say it before I become unreasonable. He did not give me money. Did he offer? No. Did he settle? Anything? No. Did he instruct anyone else to do so?" Marianne hesitated. "Not that I know." Agatha's eyes narrowed, but Marianne had already returned to the note. One detail mattered more than the rest. Who knows the exact amount? Lady Mercer, obviously. Who told her? She does not say. Marianne folded the note carefully. Then that is the question. Agatha leaned back. "You are remarkably calm." "I am not calm. You look calm. That is different." The torn ivory glove remained upstairs in the work-basket beside Marianne's bedroom window. She had not touched it since placing it there after Julian's call. The pale grey gloves rested on a chair near her dressing table, waiting for the evening. Nothing about either object had changed, only the stories attached to them had multiplied. Marianne looked again at the number. £50. Not 20. Not 100. A sum precise enough to sound plausible. A sum someone had chosen. "Do not mention the amount tonight," she said. Agatha frowned. "To whom?" "Anyone. Including Cecily. Especially Cecily." "Why?" Marianne placed Lady Mercer's note flat on the table. "Because precision usually belongs to the person who began the lie." Agatha was silent for a moment. Then she said, "You believe Cecily started it. I believe she may know more than she should. That is a cautious answer. It is the only kind worth using before proof." By evening, Lady Wexford's house had been arranged for a musical gathering small enough to feel intimate and large enough for gossip to travel efficiently. Marianne counted perhaps 40 guests as she entered beside Agatha. Lady Mercer was already there. Lady Densmore stood near the pianoforte, speaking with Mrs. Belham. Mrs. Vane arranged music sheets beside Lady Wexford's chair, moving with the practiced quiet of someone expected to notice everything and be noticed by no one. Cecily had not yet arrived. Marianne wore the pale grey gloves. The torn ivory one remained untouched at home. Before leaving the house, Agatha had suggested staying home. Marianne had refused. Absence becomes confession by breakfast. You once preferred leaving to being watched. I still prefer choice. Is that what this is? Marianne had fastened the last button at her wrist. No, I have merely become less willing to be convenient. Now, standing beneath Lady Wexford's chandeliers, she understood the price of that decision. Conversations softened when she entered, not stopped. That would have been crude. Society preferred cruelty with better manners. Lady Mercer crossed the room almost immediately. You received my note? Yes. I am sorry. Do not be. You warned me. I wish I knew where it began. Marianne glanced toward Lady Densmore, who had just laughed too loudly at something Mrs. Belham said. Perhaps we will. Lady Mercer studied her. You have a plan. Only a question. Those are often more dangerous. Before Marianne could answer, the first musician took her place. Conversation gave way to music. Cecily arrived during the second piece. Marianne saw her enter without turning her head fully. Cecily greeted Lady Wexford, spoke briefly to Mrs. Belham, then took a place near the back. During the interval, Marianne went to the side table for lemonade. She had just lifted a glass when Cecily appeared beside her. You came. So did you. I had begun to think you might avoid society after all the attention. Marianne looked at her. Were you hoping? Cecily smiled. I was concerned. You disguise it well. For 1 second, something cold entered Cecily's eyes. Then it vanished. People are talking about His grace. People usually do, not like this. Marianne took a sip of lemonade. Cecily lowered her voice. His generosity may have been misunderstood. There it was, not the accusation itself. An invitation to acknowledge it. Marianne set down the glass. Generosity. Kindness from a man in his position can be dangerous when others mistake it for intimacy. No one has produced evidence that I accepted money from anyone. Cecily answered too quickly. My dear, no one said it was £50. The world did not stop. The room did not fall silent. A violinist across the room continued adjusting a string. Someone near the windows laughed. Lady Wexford was speaking to an elderly gentleman, yet Marianne heard the sentence with perfect clarity. She had not said £50. She had not said any amount. No, Marianne said softly. I did not. Cecily's face changed only for a fraction of a second. Marianne saw it. Fear. Near the pianoforte, Lady Densmore turned her head. At the music room doorway, Mrs. Vane went motionless, with a sheet of music still in her hand. Cecily recovered. You implied it. No. Marianne held her gaze. I said no one had produced evidence that I accepted money. I did not mention £50. Cecily's smile returned, thinner now. Then perhaps I heard the number elsewhere. From whom? I cannot remember every foolish thing repeated in London. Only those who know details I have not given them. Cecily's fingers tightened around her fan. Lady Wexford called everyone back to their seats. Cecily moved away first. Before returning to her place, she stopped beside Lady Densmore and spoke to her in a low voice. Marianne could not hear the words. She did not need to. For the first time since the rumor began, she had seen something beneath Cecily's polish that was not contempt. It was fear of being caught in her own precision. Julian arrived during the second half of the evening. He had not been present for the exchange. Marianne knew that before he even crossed the room. Cecily knew it too. He greeted Lady Wexford, Lady Mercer, and several others before approaching Marianne. His gaze moved over her face, then down to her left hand, where her fingers had closed too tightly around the edge of her reticule. Something happened, he said. Yes. Do you want to tell me? The question itself mattered. Not what happened, not who did it. Do you want to tell me? Marianne looked toward the open doorway. Agatha sat within sight. There is a rumor that you gave me money. Julian's expression hardened. I did not. I know. He studied her. How much? Marianne stared at him. Why do you ask? Because invented stories often reveal themselves through unnecessary precision. The echo of her own thought unsettled her. £50. Julian's face did not change. Who told you? Lady Mercer warned my aunt this morning. She had heard one version naming exactly £50. And Miss Harrow? Marianne told him everything. The morning note, the decision not to mention the amount. Cecily's remark about generosity, Marianne's own words, then the fatal sentence. My dear, no one said it was £50. Julian listened without interrupting. When she finished, he asked, Did you say the amount at any point before she did? No. Not in her hearing. No. Then she knew a detail you had not given. Her. Yes. That does not prove she began the rumor. Marianne looked at him. No. Something in his expression eased. Good. You are pleased. I am pleased you want proof before accusation. Marianne's gaze dropped briefly to the pale grey gloves. I know what accusation feels like. Julian was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, What will you do? Find out who told Lady Mercer. He did not offer to investigate. He did not say he would handle it. He only asked, "And what would you like from me?" Marianne looked at him fully. "The truth, if I ask for it. You shall have it." Across the room, Mrs. Vane passed behind Cecily, carrying Lady Wexford's shawl. Cecily turned at the wrong moment, and Mrs. Vane lowered her eyes too quickly. Marianne noticed. Nothing more. Not yet. The music began again. Marianne returned to her seat beside Agatha. The rumour was no longer merely cruel. It had a number, a path, and someone behind it, and somewhere between £50 and a sentence Cecily had never been invited to know. Fear had entered her cousin's face. The anonymous note arrived shortly after 10 the next morning, folded once, sealed without a crest, and delivered by a boy from a stationer near Piccadilly who could say only that a woman had paid him to bring it before noon. Marianne stood in the entrance hall, while Agatha examined the paper as though suspicion might reveal itself through poor stationery. "Do you recognize the hand?" Marianne asked. "No." "The seal?" "There isn't crest. That seems considerate." Agatha gave her a look. Anonymous people are never considerate. The boy shifted uneasily near the door. Marianne thanked him, and the butler saw him out. Only then did she break the plain wax seal. The message contained one sentence. "Ask Lady Mercer who first told her about the £50. Marianne read it twice. Agatha took the note when Marianne handed it over, studied the words, and returned it. "I dislike this. You dislike most mysteries before luncheon. I dislike people who know where we live and refuse to sign their names." Marianne folded the note and slipped it into her reticule. "It may be a trap, a remarkably dull one. Marianne, it asks me to speak to Lady Mercer in daylight. That does not make it safe. No, but it makes it worth asking." By noon, Marianne and Agatha were seated in Lady Mercer's morning room. The torn ivory glove remained at home, untouched in the work-basket beside Marianne's bedroom window. The anonymous note remained inside Marianne's reticule until Lady Mercer had finished the first formalities and dismissed the tea tray. Then Marianne asked, "Who first told you about the £50? Lady Mercer's expression changed. "Why?" Marianne reached into her reticule and placed the folded note on the table, keeping her fingers on it until Lady Mercer extended her hand. Only then did Marianne pass it across. Lady Mercer read the single sentence and looked up sharply. "I did not send this. I did not think you had, and I told no one that I warned your aunt." Agatha leaned forward. "Then who knew enough to send it?" Lady Mercer reread the note. "I cannot say, but I can answer the question." Marianne waited. "I heard the amount from Mrs. Belham." "And Mrs. Belham?" "She heard it from Lady Densmore." Marianne felt the chain begin to take shape. "Do you know where Lady Densmore heard it?" Lady Mercer hesitated. "No, not directly." "Indirectly?" "The afternoon before the musical evening, I saw Cecily speaking privately with Lady Densmore near the conservatory doors at Lady Wexford's house." Agatha's eyes narrowed. Lady Mercer continued. "I noticed only because Lady Densmore appeared uncomfortable afterward. Later that same afternoon, she spoke to Mrs. Belham. By evening, the story had begun to travel." Marianne took the anonymous note back when Lady Mercer returned it and placed it in her reticule. "Circumstantial," she said. "Yes, but useful." Lady Mercer studied her. "You sound like a magistrate." "I hope not. I am trying to avoid sounding like gossip." The butler entered before Lady Mercer could answer. "His Grace, the Duke of Caldemere." Julian came into the room with the butler still behind him. He greeted Lady Mercer first, then Agatha, then Marianne. His gaze paused on the folded note, now half visible between Marianne's fingers. He did not ask for it. That restraint mattered. Lady Mercer said, "You have arrived during an investigation." Should I be alarmed? Probably. Julian looked at Marianne. "Did you learn something?" She could have said no. Instead, she chose to trust him with the next piece. Marianne placed the anonymous note on the table between them. Julian read the sentence without touching it. "You asked Lady Mercer?" "Yes," Marianne explained the chain. Mrs. Belham had heard from Lady Densmore. Lady Densmore had spoken privately with Cecily earlier that same afternoon. Julian listened, then said, "Circumstantial." Marianne looked at him. Useful. Something passed between them, almost amusement, almost recognition. Before either could say more, voices sounded in the hall. Lady Wexford entered with Cecily beside her. Cecily saw Marianne first. Surprise flashed across her face and vanished so quickly that another person might have missed it. Marianne did not. Lady Wexford greeted the room. Cecily followed with perfect composure. Her eyes dropped once to the anonymous note on the table, then away, again, too quickly. Enough to remember. Not enough to prove. Conversation became formal. Lady Wexford spoke of an upcoming dinner. Agatha answered politely. Lady Mercer asked after a charity subscription. Cecily waited until the room had settled, then turned to Julian. "Your Grace, might I speak with you?" Lady Mercer's adjoining gallery stood open and fully visible from the morning room. Julian inclined his head. They moved only a short distance away, close enough to preserve propriety and far enough to lower their voices. Marianne did not try to overhear. She did not need to. Cecily's expression told her enough. Controlled concern. Carefully measured sincerity. When Julian returned several minutes later, his face revealed nothing. Marianne waited until Lady Wexford drew Agatha and Lady Mercer into conversation near the windows. Then she asked quietly, "What did she say?" Julian looked at her. "Do you want the polite version?" "No." She said, "You are ambitious." Marianne almost laughed. How disappointing. I had hoped for something more original. "She said you cultivated sympathy after the humiliation at Lady Wexford's first gathering." The humor left Marianne's face. "And she said my attention encouraged you." Marianne held his gaze. "Do you believe her?" "No." The answer came without flourish. "Why?" Julian's eyes did not leave hers. "Because the first time I saw you, you were leaving a room rather than begging for a place in it." The words struck deeper than she expected. Marianne looked down at the pale grey gloves on her hands. "You have an inconvenient memory. It has caused trouble before, I can imagine." He was silent for a moment. Then Marianne said, "I am afraid of your attention." Julian did not move. "Because of the rumor. Not only that." She drew a slow breath. "I am afraid your attention will improve my life just long enough to ruin it when it ends." There. The truth sounded worse aloud, more vulnerable. Julian's expression changed, not with pity, but with something more difficult. "Then I owe you an equal truth." Marianne waited. "I am afraid every kindness I offer you will be mistaken for charity, and every attempt to protect you will make you feel smaller." That is possible. I know. The immediate honesty almost undid her. You dislike being told you may be wrong. Profoundly. Yet you admit it, only under severe pressure. Marianne's mouth softened despite herself. How brave. "I endure what I must." Their eyes met. For a moment, the room receded. Not because nothing else mattered, but because neither of them was hiding. Then Lady Wexford approached. She carried a folded note in one hand. "Marianne, this is for you." Marianne accepted it. "From whom?" "From me." Lady Wexford's tone was formal. "There is a private family matter requiring immediate clarification tomorrow evening at my house." Marianne unfolded the note. The wording was exactly as Lady Wexford had said. Then she saw the postscript. "Bring the torn glove with you." She read it twice, Julian noticed. "What does it say?" Marianne handed him the summons. He read it and became very still. "Where is the glove?" he asked. "In my workbasket, upstairs." "At home. Who has handled it since the first evening?" "No one but me." Julian returned the note to her. "Then leave it there." Marianne looked across the room. Cecily was speaking softly to Lady Densmore, who had just entered. At that exact moment, Cecily raised her eyes. She saw Marianne watching. Her smile disappeared. Fear appeared in its place, brief but unmistakable. The anonymous message remained in Marianne's reticule. The torn glove remained untouched at home, and somewhere between £50, a whispered warning, and a demand to produce an old glove. Someone had begun to fear that Marianne was no longer willing to stay silent. Marianne left the torn ivory glove exactly where it had remained since Julian's visit, inside the workbasket beside her bedroom window. The split seam at the right forefinger was unchanged. The old blue-grey cotton repair near the thumb remained intact. The worn cream silk lining still showed beneath the damaged edge. She did not touch it before dressing for Lady Wexford's summons. She only looked at the workbasket once, then closed the bedroom door and went downstairs, wearing the pale grey gloves Julian had given her. Agatha was waiting in the entrance hall. Her gaze moved immediately to Marianne's empty hands. "You are not bringing it." "No. Lady Wexford specifically asked you to. That is why I am leaving it here." Agatha frowned. "You think someone wants the glove itself?" Marianne adjusted the clasp of her reticule. The anonymous note remained inside it, folded exactly as before. "I think someone who invented a story about £50 has now become interested in an old glove no one cared about until His Grace noticed it. That is not proof." "No." Marianne met her aunt's eyes. "But it is reason enough not to hand the object over, because I was told to." Agatha exhaled. "You have become very fond of refusing instructions. Only the suspicious ones." The carriage ride to Lady Wexford's house was brief. Marianne had expected 4 or 5 people at most. Lady Wexford had called it a private family matter. Instead, the drawing room contained more than a dozen chairs arranged in a shallow crescent. Lady Mercer sat near the fire. Lady Densmore stood beside one of the windows. Mrs. Belham was there as well. Mrs. Vane remained near Lady Wexford's writing desk with a folded shawl over one arm. Cecily stood in the centre of the room, perfectly composed. Marianne stopped just inside the doorway. "This is private." Lady Wexford's expression tightened. "These are trusted friends." "How reassuring." Agatha touched Marianne's sleeve. "Not a warning. Support." Marianne entered. The pale grey gloves on her hands drew immediate notice. Cecily looked at them first, then at Marianne's reticule. "You did not bring the torn glove." "No." "Why?" Marianne looked at her. "Because it belongs to me." A small silence followed. Cecily smiled. "That is precisely what we are here to determine." Lady Wexford gestured toward a chair. "Sit down, Marianne." Marianne looked at the waiting witnesses. "I prefer to hear the accusation on my feet." Cecily's smile narrowed. "There is no accusation." "Then this should be brief." Lady Mercer lowered her eyes, though not before Marianne saw the faintest hint of approval. Lady Wexford drew a careful breath. "Your cousin has raised a concern about the glove you wore at my first gathering." "My glove. That remains to be established," Cecily said. Marianne turned toward her. "Then establish it." The directness unsettled Cecily more than anger would have. She moved toward a small lacquered box resting on the table and opened it. From inside, She removed a narrow strip of pale ivory kid, cleanly cut and without any visible repair. She held it between 2 fingers. This came from the same maker who supplied a pair of gloves to me 3 seasons ago. Marianne waited. Cecily continued. The torn glove you wore here was mine. Agatha stiffened. Marianne did not move. Yours? Yes. How did I acquire it? You took it from my dressing room last winter. Why? Cecily's eyes sharpened. Because it was damaged. That does not answer the question. Cecily lifted her chin. You wanted something that would make you appear poor enough to inspire sympathy. The room seemed to change around Marianne, not because she believed the accusation, because Cecily had taken a moment of private shame and rebuilt it as calculation. Cecily continued before anyone could interrupt. You wore the damaged glove deliberately. You knew that a man like His Grace might notice hardship. You hid your hand just enough to make him see it. For one heartbeat, Marianne remembered the first evening. Cecily's glance, the torn seam, her own instinctive movement to conceal her fingers. Julian noticing what others had ignored. Every part of that moment had belonged to her. Now Cecily was trying to claim even her shame had been staged. The old instinct urged Marianne to leave. She did not. You are saying, Marianne said quietly, that I stole an old glove months ago, waited for the seam to split, chose the exact room and exact evening in which a duke might notice it, then concealed my hand so skillfully that he saw me doing so. Cecily's face hardened. Mockery does not make it untrue. Neither does confidence make it true. Marianne looked at the ivory strip. What is that supposed to prove? It matches the glove. You have not examined my glove. I know what it looks like. You saw the outside. Cecily took one step closer. I know the maker. So do many women in London. This strip matches the inner layer. Marianne held out one pale grey gloved hand. May I see it? Cecily hesitated. The hesitation was brief, but it existed. Then she placed the strip in Marianne's palm. Marianne turned it over, fine ivory kid. Clean edge, no blue-grey repair, no cream silk. You say this proves ownership? Yes. Because it comes from the same maker. Because it matches. Matches what? Cecily's patience slipped. The lining. Marianne lifted her gaze. You do not know the lining of my glove. I know the glove. You have not possessed it. You have not handled it. You have not examined its repairs. Cecily gave a short laugh. Repairs can be added. Agatha rose. That is enough. Marianne stopped her with one glance. She needed to do this herself. My glove is 3 seasons old, Marianne said. It has been repaired more than once. The old repair near the thumb was made with thread I supplied myself. The inner lining is not the same material as the strip you have brought. The woman who repaired the glove last winter can identify what she did. A flicker crossed Cecily's face. Fear. Marianne saw it clearly. Lady Wexford looked between them. Perhaps we should postpone this until His Grace is present. Marianne turned to her. Why? Because he is involved. He is not the owner of the glove. Lady Wexford hesitated. His attention is the reason this matters. Marianne felt a cold clarity settle inside her. No, my cousin's accusation is the reason this matters. At that moment, the butler announced the Duke of Caldemere. Julian entered before anyone could rearrange the room into innocence. His gaze took in the chairs, the witnesses, Cecily beside the lacquered box, and Marianne holding a narrow strip of ivory kid. Have I interrupted something? Lady Wexford answered first. A misunderstanding. No, Marianne said. Julian looked directly at her. Then tell me. Not Cecily, not Lady Wexford. Her. Marianne drew a slow breath. My cousin says the torn glove I wore here belonged to her. She says I stole it from her dressing room last winter and wore it deliberately to attract your pity. Julian's expression did not change. Is that true? No. Cecily stepped forward. Of course she denies it. Julian turned toward her. And your proof? Cecily pointed to the strip in Marianne's hand. That. Julian looked back at Marianne. May I see it? The question mattered. Marianne placed the strip in his palm. He examined it briefly and returned it to her. Where is the actual glove? At home. In my work basket beside my bedroom window. Who has handled it since the first evening? No one but me. Cecily gave a soft laugh. Convenient. Julian ignored her. Who has seen it before? My aunt. The woman who repaired it last winter. Members of our household have seen it among my things. Cecily folded her arms. You cannot believe her without proof. Julian looked at her. I do not. Satisfaction flashed across Cecily's face. Then he continued. Nor do I believe you without proof. Her expression changed. Marianne felt something inside her steady. Julian had not rescued her by declaring blind faith. He had left room for truth. She turned back to Cecily. Tomorrow, I will have the glove examined by the woman who repaired it. The thread can be identified. The lining can be identified. The rumor chain can be traced, and I will not accuse anyone without evidence. Cecily's face had gone pale. Marianne held up the ivory strip. This stays with me. You cannot simply take it. You gave it to me as evidence against my character. Marianne opened her reticule and placed the false ivory strip inside beside the anonymous note. I intend to preserve it. No one spoke. Julian remained behind her, silent because she had not asked him to speak. Marianne looked once more at Cecily. I will not accuse you without proof. Her voice was quiet. But I will no longer protect you from questions. Then she closed her reticule. The real torn glove remained untouched at home. The false ivory strip was now in Marianne's possession, and for the first time since Cecily had begun turning whispers into weapons. Everyone in the room had seen what happened when Marianne refused to leave. The woman who had repaired Marianne's torn glove arrived shortly before 11. The next morning, carrying a work basket, polished smooth by years of use, and wearing the wary expression of someone who had accepted an ordinary professional request, only to discover that half of London's gossip had attached itself to the seam. Marianne received her in Agatha's morning room. Agatha sat near the window. Julian stood by the mantel at a respectful distance, present because Agatha had sent him a brief note after breakfast, stating that the glove would be examined and that, as he had witnessed the accusation, he might attend if he wished. He had come without delay. He had also asked no questions before Marianne was ready to answer them. That mattered more than she wanted it to. The torn ivory glove remained upstairs, where Marianne had left it after his morning call days earlier. Inside the work basket, beside her bedroom window, beneath a folded length of blue ribbon, and next to a packet of needles, Marianne went to retrieve it herself. No servant entered with her. No one else touched the basket. She lifted the glove carefully and stood for one moment beside the window, studying the split seam at the right forefinger, the worn cream silk lining beneath it, and the old blue-gray cotton repair near the thumb. 3 seasons old, worn beyond elegance, repaired because replacement had once seemed an unnecessary expense. Cecily had tried to turn those facts into shame, then into theft, then into calculated deceit. Marianne carried the glove downstairs openly. When she entered the morning room, Julian's gaze moved first to her face, then to the object in her hand. He did not approach. The widow rose from her chair. "May I?" she asked. Marianne placed the glove in her hands. The woman turned it beneath the light, with the care of someone who understood that damage often remembered more than people did. Her fingers paused at the repair near the thumb. "Yes," she said. Agatha leaned forward. "You remember it?" "I do." The widow turned the glove partly inside out. "Miss Bellrose brought it to me last winter. It was already well worn then." Marianne watched her face. "What did you repair?" The seam near the thumb had opened. There was weakness near the forefinger as well, though it had not split as badly as this. She touched the blue-grey stitches. "You supplied the thread yourself." Agatha closed her eyes briefly. She remembered. Marianne did too. She had counted coins before making the request. Julian's expression remained unreadable, but there was no pity in it, only attention. "Why did Miss Bellrose supply the thread?" he asked. The widow looked toward him, startled by the question. "Because she did not wish to pay for finer silk, Your Grace." Marianne felt heat rise beneath her skin. Julian did not look away from her. "And the lining?" Marianne asked before the silence could become uncomfortable. The widow opened the glove farther. Cream silk, worn thin at the right forefinger. Marianne reached into her reticule. The anonymous note remained folded inside. Beside it lay the narrow strip of pale ivory kid Cecily had given her as alleged proof. Marianne removed the strip and placed it on the table. "Could this have come from the lining of that glove?" The widow frowned. "No." "You are certain?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because this is kid. The lining is silk." The answer was so plain that Marianne nearly laughed. Not because the situation was amusing, because a lie had nearly become truth, simply by being spoken in the right rooms by people wearing expensive clothes. Julian looked at the strip, then at the glove. Could that piece have come from another pair made by the same shop? "Certainly, Your Grace." "Would that prove ownership of this glove?" The widow seemed almost offended. "No." Marianne felt something inside her settle. Proof did not erase what Cecily had said. It did not make the accusation less cruel, but it gave the truth form. "Would you be willing to repeat what you have told us before others?" she asked. The widow's hands stopped moving. Fear entered her face immediately. Marianne regretted the question before the woman spoke. "Before whom?" "Lady Wexford, Lady Mercer, perhaps others who heard the accusation." The widow looked down at the torn glove. "I have 2 daughters." No one spoke. "Some of the households that send me work are friendly with Lady Wexford. Miss Harrow's family has influence." Agatha drew breath, but Marianne answered first. "Then you will not be asked." The widow looked up sharply. "Miss Bellrose, you will not risk your livelihood for me. But I know the glove. I believe you. Others may not. That is their failure." The widow's eyes brightened, though no tears fell. "I could write what I know." Marianne shook her head slightly. "Only if you wish." "I do." "Not because you feel obliged." "No." The widow straightened. "Because yesterday I heard what people were saying. I thought it was gossip. Now I understand someone wants the lie to survive examination." Julian remained silent. Marianne noticed that too. He could have used his rank to reassure the woman, or pressure her, or promise protection. He did none of those things because the choice belonged to the widow. Agatha brought paper, ink, and a pen. The widow sat at the writing desk and wrote slowly but clearly. She stated that she had repaired Marianne Bellrose's ivory kid glove the previous winter, that Marianne had supplied blue-grey cotton, thread used near the thumb, that the inner lining was worn cream silk, and that the narrow strip of ivory kid presented beside it could not have come from that lining. When she finished, she signed her name. The paper remained untouched until the ink dried. Only then did Marianne accept it. Before the widow left, Marianne said, "You will be paid for your time." The woman stiffened. "I do not want to be bought. Nor do I want your labor treated as though it has no value." Their eyes met. The widow nodded once. Agatha paid her the ordinary fee for a professional consultation, nothing more. After the woman left, Julian remained near the mantel. "You could have persuaded her to appear publicly," he said. Marianne looked at him. "No, you might have. Then society is badly arranged." A faint change touched his mouth. "I will not argue." "How alarming. I have begun to suspect you enjoy these victories too much. Only the rare ones." His gaze moved to the signed statement in her hand. "You gave up stronger public testimony to protect her livelihood. I refused to purchase my dignity with another woman's fear." Julian held her eyes. "I know." He said nothing more. That was enough. By 3 that afternoon, Marianne and Agatha were seated in Lady Mercer's private sitting room. Julian had not accompanied them. He had said his presence might make the visit look like pressure, and for once he had chosen absence where power was unnecessary. Marianne carried the torn glove in one hand. The widow's signed statement and the false ivory strip rested separately inside her reticule beside the anonymous note. Lady Mercer listened without interruption while Marianne explained the examination. Then Marianne removed the statement and strip and placed them on the table. "I want you to keep these." Lady Mercer looked surprised. "Both?" "Yes." "Why me?" "Because you were present when the rumor began to reach me. Because my cousin knows I possessed the strip, and because I would prefer the evidence not to remain under the same roof as the glove." Lady Mercer's eyes sharpened. "You believe she may try to recover it?" "I believe she wanted the actual glove brought to Lady Wexford's house. I still do not know why." Agatha glanced at the torn glove. "And that?" Lady Mercer asked. Marianne closed her fingers around it. "That returns home with me." In full view of both women, Lady Mercer placed the widow's signed statement and the false ivory strip inside her escritoire and locked them together. The key remained with her. The transfer was complete. Marianne had just risen to leave when Lady Mercer said, "There is something else." Marianne turned. "Your cousin called here this morning." Agatha went still. "Why?" "She asked whether the woman who repaired your glove had written anything down." Marianne felt a small chill. Cecily already knew Marianne intended to consult the repairer. It was possible she had simply guessed that a written account might follow. The troubling part was not that the question was impossible. It was that Cecily had asked it so quickly, so specifically, before anyone had invited her into the process. "What did you tell her?" Marianne asked. "Nothing. I had not yet seen you. I did not know a statement existed." Lady Mercer's expression hardened, but she was watching for one. Marianne looked down at the torn glove in her hand. The split seam had not changed. The old repair remained visible. Yet Cecily was following every attempt to test her accusation, as though she feared not merely the truth itself, but the order in which Marianne might uncover it. That evening, Marianne carried the glove upstairs, placed it back inside the work basket beneath the folded blue ribbon and beside the packet of needles, and closed the lid. The signed statement and false ivory strip now rested locked inside Lady Mercer's escritoire. The anonymous note remained in Marianne's reticule. Every piece had one place. Every movement had been chosen. And somewhere beyond Agatha's quiet house, Cecily was already trying to learn what Marianne would discover next. Lady Densmore's note arrived shortly before noon the next day, written in a hand so carefully controlled that Marianne knew fear had shaped every line. It contained no explanation, only a request that Marianne and Agatha call privately, and one final sentence that made refusal impossible. "There is something I should have told you sooner." Marianne read it twice before folding it and placing it inside her reticule beside the anonymous note. Upstairs, the torn ivory glove remained in the work-basket beside her bedroom window, beneath the folded blue ribbon and next to the packet of needles. The widow's signed statement and the false ivory strip remained locked together inside Lady Mercer's escritoire. Nothing had changed place, yet one truth was beginning to gather weight around another. Cecily had known the exact £50 amount before Marianne spoke it. She had watched for a written account from the woman who repaired the glove. And now, Lady Densmore wanted to confess something she should have said sooner. "You look as though you expect bad news," Agatha said as their carriage drew up before Lady Densmore's house. "I expect the truth. That is often worse, which explains why people avoid it." Lady Densmore received them in a small rear drawing room with no other callers present. The door remained open. A maid brought tea, then withdrew. Lady Densmore did not touch the pot. She looked older than she had at Lady Wexford's musical evening, though only a few days had passed. Fear, Marianne thought, did not always age a person by years. Sometimes it merely revealed how long they had been carrying them. "Thank you for coming," Lady Densmore said. Marianne sat opposite her. Agatha took the chair near the window. "You said there was something you should have told me." Lady Densmore lowered her eyes. "Yes," Marianne waited. She had learned that silence often did more work than pressure. At last, Lady Densmore drew a breath. "The £50 rumour began with Miss Harrow." The words entered the room quietly. Agatha stiffened. Marianne felt no surprise, only the cold settling of suspicion into fact. "Tell me exactly what happened." Lady Densmore nodded. "The afternoon before Lady Wexford's musical evening, Miss Harrow asked to speak with me near the conservatory doors. She said His Grace had given you money after the first gathering." "Did she say why?" "She said he pitied your circumstances." Marianne kept her hands still, and the amount, Lady Densmore's face tightened with shame. £50. There it was. Exact, deliberate. What did she ask you to do? At first, nothing directly. She said such things ought not to remain secret when a gentleman of His Grace's position might be compromised. Agatha gave a soft sound of disgust. Lady Densmore continued. Then she suggested Mrs. Bellam should know, because Mrs. Bellam is acquainted with families who might otherwise misunderstand his intentions. "So you told Mrs. Bellam?" "Yes, and Mrs. Bellam told Lady Mercer." Yes, the full chain was now visible. Cecily to Lady Densmore, Lady Densmore to Mrs. Bellam, Mrs. Bellam to Lady Mercer. Then Lady Mercer's warning had reached Agatha and Marianne. The rumour had not risen from a careless crowd. It had been placed into the first mouth with the precision of a match held to dry paper. "Why are you telling me now?" Marianne asked. Lady Densmore looked toward the open doorway, though no one stood there. "Because Miss Harrow came to me again yesterday." Agatha leaned forward. What did she want? She wanted me to say the rumour had begun with a servant from the Duke of Caldemir's household. Marianne went very still. Did she name the servant? No. Did she explain why such a servant would know anything about my family? No. Did she offer you money? No. The answer came too quickly. Marianne studied her. What did she offer? Lady Densmore's mouth trembled. Nothing that could be held in one's hand. Marianne understood before the woman continued. My youngest daughter is 17. Lady Wexford's invitations matter to her future. Miss Harrow reminded me that Lady Wexford's sponsorship opens rooms that might otherwise remain closed, and she suggested those doors might close if you refused. Not in those words. Of course not. Polite cruelty rarely chose words that could later be repeated without embarrassment. Lady Densmore clasped her hands. I told her I would not do it. Agatha's expression softened slightly. Marianne asked, "Why?" Lady Densmore looked at her then. Because of the widow. Marianne had not expected that. The woman who repaired my glove? Yes. Lady Densmore's cheeks coloured. Lady Mercer told me yesterday that you refused to compel her to appear publicly because you would not risk her livelihood. Marianne said nothing. I have spent 2 days telling myself I repeated the rumour because I was afraid for my daughter. Lady Densmore continued. The fear was real, but yesterday I heard that you had more reason than I did to use another woman's vulnerability for your own protection, and you refused. Her voice lowered. It made cowardice harder to defend. Something tightened in Marianne's throat. She had not protected the widow to inspire anyone. She had simply refused to make another woman pay for Cecily's cruelty. Yet, courage, she realized, could travel quietly. One person's refusal could become another person's permission to act. Will you put what you have told me in writing? Marianne asked. Lady Densmore hesitated. Marianne did not press. Only if you choose. The woman looked at her for several seconds. Yes. She crossed to the writing desk. Marianne watched the pen move across the paper. Lady Densmore wrote that Cecily Harrow had told her Julian Ashcombe, Duke of Caldemere, had given Marianne Bellrose £50. She stated that she had repeated the story to Mrs. Belham. She stated that Cecily later urged her to claim the rumour originated with a servant from the Duke's household. When she finished, she signed her name. The paper remained untouched until the ink dried. Then Lady Densmore folded it once and handed it directly to Marianne. Marianne accepted it and placed it inside her reticule beside the anonymous note. Its path was clear. Its possessor was clear. Thank you, she said. Lady Densmore looked relieved, but not finished. Marianne saw it. There is more. The older woman glanced at Agatha, then back at Marianne. At the musical evening, after Miss Harrow spoke to me, I noticed someone near the music room door. Marianne's thoughts sharpened. Who? Mrs. Vane. Marianne remembered the quiet companion holding music sheets. The woman who had gone motionless when Cecily said £50. Did she hear the conversation? I cannot be certain. She was close enough to hear if she was listening. Did she speak to you? No. To Cecily. Not that I saw. Marianne thought of the anonymous note. Ask Lady Mercer, who first told her about the £50. A woman had delivered it to the stationer. A woman who knew enough to point Marianne toward the rumour chain. Mrs. Vane was possible, not proven. Marianne refused to turn possibility into accusation merely because it fit. Do not speak to her yet, Agatha said. Marianne looked at her. I was not going to. Good. Your confidence is touching. Agatha ignored that. Lady Densmore's face had become troubled again. There is one more thing. Marianne felt the room tighten. What? Yesterday, before Miss Harrow left, she said something about His Grace. Marianne's pulse changed. What did she say? That his concern for you was not what it appeared. Marianne forced herself to remain still. Go on. She said you would soon discover that a man may investigate a woman out of pity without ever intending to stand beside her. The words struck harder than they should have. Investigate, Marianne repeated. Lady Dens what she meant. She said, His Grace had already made inquiries into your family finances. Agatha's face changed. That is absurd. Perhaps, Lady Densmore said. I do not know whether it is true. Marianne heard Julian's voice from only days earlier. I am afraid every kindness I offer you will be mistaken for charity, and every attempt to protect you will make you feel smaller. Had he already acted without telling her when he said it? Had he looked beyond her torn glove and into the private economies of Agatha's household? Had a steward questioned tradesmen? Had strangers discussed whether Marianne could pay her bills? She hated that the thought wounded her. She hated more that it was plausible. Who told Cecily? She asked. She would not say. Did she claim to have proof? No. Marianne closed her reticule. Inside it now rested the anonymous note and Lady Densmore's signed statement. At Lady Mercer's house, the widow's signed statement and the false ivory strip remained locked away. Upstairs at home, the torn glove remained in Marianne's work-basket. Every object was accounted for. Every lie had begun to acquire a path. Only one question had become more dangerous, because it concerned the one man whose attention she had begun to trust. As Marianne rose to leave, Lady Densmore said quietly, I am sorry. Marianne looked at her. For the rumor, for waiting until courage became less expensive. Marianne considered the answer. Then she said, courage is rarely cheap. That does not make it worthless when it finally arrives. Outside, Agatha said nothing until they were inside the carriage. Then she asked, Will you send for His Grace? Marianne looked through the window at the passing London streets. No. Why not? She closed one gloved hand over the reticule in her lap. Because if he made inquiries into my life without asking me, I do not want another rumor to tell me why. Agatha went still. Marianne looked straight ahead. I will ask him myself. By the time Marianne returned home from Lady Densmore's house, she had repeated the question so often that it no longer sounded like fear. It sounded like judgment. The anonymous note and Lady Densmore's signed statement remained inside her reticule. The widow's signed statement and the false ivory strip were still locked together inside Lady Mercer's escritoire. Upstairs, the torn ivory glove remained exactly where Marianne had left it, inside the work-basket beside her bedroom window, beneath the folded blue ribbon, and next to the packet of needles. Nothing had moved. Nothing had been lost. Yet one fact had altered the shape of everything. Julian Ashcombe might have ordered inquiries into her family finances without telling her. Agatha followed Marianne into the drawing-room and left the door, partly open, preserving propriety, without pretending that either woman cared about appearances at that moment. You should sit down, Agatha said. I would rather stand. You always say that when sitting would be more sensible. Marianne removed the pale grey gloves finger by finger and placed them on the table. Her bare hands felt strangely exposed. If His Grace did what Cecily claims, I want to hear it from him. And if he did not, then I will know that too. You sound remarkably calm. Marianne looked at her. I am not calm. No, I had noticed. Before Marianne could answer, the butler appeared at the open doorway. His Grace, the Duke of Caldemere, has called. Agatha stared at Marianne. That is either providence or unfortunate timing. Possibly both. Marianne's heart struck once, hard enough to anger her. Show him in. Julian entered several moments later. He bowed to Agatha first, then to Marianne. His gaze found her face and sharpened almost immediately. Something happened. Once she might have been comforted that he noticed. Today, it only made the question more difficult. Yes. He glanced toward Agatha, who took a chair near the window. The door remained open. A footman stood within sight in the hall. Nothing improper, nothing hidden. Julian looked back at Marianne. "Tell me." She reached into her reticule and removed Lady Densmore's folded statement. She did not hand it to him. Lady Densmore has confirmed that Cecily began the £50 rumour. His expression hardened. She said so directly. "In writing. May I see it?" Marianne kept the paper in her hand. "Not yet." Julian went quiet. He accepted the answer without protest. That made the next question harder, not easier. "She also told me something else." "What?" Marianne met his eyes. "Did you make inquiries into my family finances?" Silence followed, not confusion. Not surprise, silence. Her stomach tightened before he answered. "Yes." The word was simple, honest, devastating. Agatha drew a quiet breath near the window, but Marianne did not look away from him. "When?" "After the first evening at Lady Wexford's. Before you came to our house the next morning. I instructed my steward to begin discreet inquiries that night." Marianne felt the room narrow around her. "So, before you brought me those gloves, you had already decided to investigate me." "I had decided to learn whether your cousin's cruelty was connected to something larger." That was not my question. Julian's jaw tightened. "Yes, before I brought you the gloves, I had already given the instruction." The truth hurt precisely because he did not try to soften it. "What did you learn?" "Very little at first. My steward had no full information by the next morning." He paused. "Over the following days, he confirmed that your aunt's household is respectable, economical, and carrying no extraordinary debt." Heat rose into Marianne's face. "Who did he ask?" "A tradesman familiar with several households in your street." The inquiry was limited. "Limited?" "Yes. That word does not improve it." "No." "Did you ask whether we paid our bills?" "Not in those terms." "But someone did," Julian's silence answered. Marianne looked away. The drawing room remained unchanged. The same pale curtains, the same modest furniture, the same table where the grey gloves now rested. Yet she felt as though a private wall inside her life had been entered without permission. "Why?" she asked. "The true reason." Julian did not answer immediately. "Because Cecily looked at your torn glove before she insulted you." I recognized contempt. I have seen people use private knowledge as a weapon, and I feared there might be more behind it. Marianne turned back to him. "And was that all?" His expression changed. "No." Her pulse altered. "What else?" "I had already begun to care whether you were safe." The words should have softened her. Instead, they struck the deepest part of the wound. "So you investigated me?" "Yes, because you cared." "Yes." She gave a short, humorless laugh that is almost worse. Pain flickered across his face. "I know." "Do you?" Marianne stepped closer, not from intimacy, but because distance suddenly felt dishonest. "You came here and apologized because you understood that being seen can become exposure. You said attention can wound when it removes choice." "I remember. And yet before saying any of that, you had already opened my life for inspection." "Yes, without telling me." "Yes, without asking me." "Yes." Each answer came quieter than the last. He did not defend himself. She almost wished he would. Anger was easier when the other person insisted upon being right. Julian stood before her with all the composure of a man accustomed to command, and used none of it to protect himself. "Your intention does not alter what was done," Marianne said. "No. You saw danger and moved before I knew there was a choice to make." "Yes." "Then, afterward, you offered me kindness and asked me to trust that it was not pity." His face tightened. "It was not pity. I believe you." The answer surprised him. Marianne continued, before courage failed. "That is not the same as believing you had the right." Julian lowered his gaze for one brief moment. I did not. Agatha remained silent. Marianne was grateful. This was not a scene that needed rescue. You told me you were afraid every attempt to protect me would make me feel smaller. I remember. You were right. The words wounded both of them. She saw that. Julian looked at her fully then. I have no defense. Good, but I owe you an apology. I do not want one yet. He absorbed that too. No protest. No injured pride. Marianne hated how much that mattered. What do you want? He asked. The question came quietly. She looked at him. I want you to leave. Agatha's hand tightened around the arm of her chair. Julian did not move at first. His face became very still. Then he inclined his head. Very well. Marianne felt the pain of his obedience more sharply than she had expected. She had wanted proof that he respected her choice. She had not expected respect to feel like loss. He bowed to Agatha, then to her. At the doorway, he stopped. One thing. Marianne said nothing. Do not mistake what I did for charity. I am not. Or pity. I am not. He drew a slow breath. Then I am grateful for that much. Marianne's throat tightened. You should go. Yes, he did. No dramatic appeal. No promise to return. No demand for forgiveness. His footsteps crossed the entrance hall and faded. A moment later, the front door closed. Marianne remained standing until Agatha finally said, Do you want me to tell you that you were right? No. Good. I was not going to. Marianne looked at her aunt. That is unlike you. Agatha lifted one brow. You underestimate the range of my talents. Despite herself, Marianne almost smiled. It vanished quickly. Agatha rose. You are hurt because you trusted him. I am hurt because he knew better. Those are not always different things. Marianne picked up the pale grey gloves from the table. She remembered the first morning call. He had told her that he had not considered attention could become exposure. He had understood the lesson before living by it. Perhaps that was the cruelest part. I do not know what happens now, she said. Agatha's expression softened. Then do not decide tonight. The following afternoon, a single note arrived from Julian. No flowers, no gift, no request for an audience. Marianne recognized his hand before she broke the seal. The message contained 3 sentences. I will not call unless invited. I will not inquire unless asked. But if you need me, I will come. Marianne read the note once, then again. She did not answer. She folded it and placed it inside her writing desk in a separate compartment from every piece of evidence. The anonymous note and Lady Densmore's signed statement remained in her reticule. The torn ivory glove remained untouched in the work basket upstairs. Lady Mercer still held the widow's statement and the false ivory strip. Every object remained where it belonged. Every truth had a place. Only Marianne's heart had become difficult to locate. She closed the desk and turned away from it. For the first time since Julian noticed her, he had given her exactly what she asked for: distance. And she discovered that having the right to choose pain did not make the pain smaller. The next morning, Marianne took the anonymous note from her reticule and read it once more beneath the pale light of the breakfast room. Ask Lady Mercer, who first told her about the £50. The message had already served its purpose. It had led her backward through Lady Mercer, Mrs. Belham, and Lady Densmore until the rumour reached Cecily. Yet the woman who had sent the note remained unknown. Marianne disliked unfinished questions, particularly when they knew her full name, her address, and the exact hour by which a warning needed to arrive. Agatha watched from across the table. You are thinking about the stationer. Marianne folded the note. Yes, I had hoped you might think about something peaceful. I tried, and it was very dull. Agatha sighed. Then I suppose I'm going with you. I had assumed so. You might occasionally pretend to need persuading. Would that improve your morning? Immensely. An hour later, they entered the stationer's shop near Piccadilly. Shelves of paper, sealing wax, ledgers, quills, and card cases lined the narrow walls. The proprietor listened carefully. While Marianne explained that a sealed message had been delivered to her house 2 mornings earlier, she placed the folded note on the counter, but kept one hand near it. "Do you remember who paid for the delivery?" she asked. The man adjusted his spectacles. A woman brought it already sealed. "Miss." "Did you know her?" "No." "Did she say anything beyond the delivery instructions?" He considered. "Only that it must reach Miss Marianne Bellrose before noon." "She knew your full name and address." "Did she write the note here?" "No." "She brought it exactly as you see it." Marianne nodded. That was enough. A woman. A sealed note. Exact knowledge of Marianne's address. Insistence that it arrive before noon. Mrs. Vane remained possible, but possibility was not proof. Marianne would not accuse someone merely because the pieces could be arranged to fit. She returned the note to her reticule beside Lady Densmore's signed statement. Outside, Piccadilly moved around them in the ordinary rhythm of late morning. Agatha waited until they were inside the carriage before speaking. "We learned very little. We learned the sender came prepared. That still leaves much of London, a little less than before." Agatha gave her a long look. "You are impossible to discourage. Cecily has tried." The words came lightly, but Marianne's thoughts moved elsewhere. Julian's note remained in her writing desk at home, in a separate compartment from every piece of evidence. "I will not call unless invited. I will not inquire unless asked. But if you need me, I will come." She had not answered. The silence between them was one she had chosen. That did not make it painless when they returned home. The butler informed them that Lady Mercer was waiting in the drawing room. Marianne stopped in the hall. Did she say why? "No, miss." Lady Mercer rose the moment Marianne entered. She still wore her bonnet and gloves, as though she had come with news too urgent for comfort. "Something has happened," Marianne said. Lady Mercer looked toward Agatha, then back at Marianne. "Your cousin called on me this morning." Marianne left the drawing-room door partly open. "What did she want?" Marianne went still. "Did you give it to her?" "No." Relief came first, then unease, and the ivory strip. She asked for that as well. "Where are they now?" "Exactly where you left them, locked together inside my escritoire." The evidence trail remained intact. What reason did she give? She claimed Lady Wexford wished to compare the statement with another account. Whose account, she would not say. Agatha moved closer. "Did she threaten you?" Lady Mercer hesitated. "Not directly. She reminded me that Lady Wexford has considerable influence over subscriptions to a charitable committee I support." Marianne understood. No vulgar threat, no raised voice, only pressure wrapped in manners. "I am sorry," she said. Lady Mercer's expression sharpened. "You are sorry? You were placed in difficulty because of me?" "No, because of her." The correction settled between them. Marianne accepted it. Lady Mercer reached into her reticule and removed an engraved calling card. "After Miss Harrow left, I found this beneath the chair where she had been sitting." She handed it directly to Marianne. Cecily Harrow's name was engraved on the front. Marianne turned it over. 4 hurried words had been written in pencil. "Get the glove before Friday," Agatha whispered. "Friday is tomorrow." Marianne read the words again. Someone wanted the glove before Friday, not merely to inspect it, to get it. Did anyone else see you find this? Marianne asked. No. Does Cecily know you came here? I do not believe so. Marianne placed the calling card inside her reticule, beside the anonymous note and Lady Densmore's signed statement. 3 separate pieces, 3 different paths, 1 tightening pattern. Lady Mercer stood. What will you do? Marianne thought of the torn glove upstairs, still inside the work basket beside her bedroom window, beneath the folded blue ribbon and beside the packet of needles. For days, other people had decided what it meant. Poverty, manipulation, pity, proof. She was tired of leaving it in the same place, merely because Julian had once advised her to do so. I am going to move it. Agatha looked at her. His Grace told you to leave it where it was. Yes, and he may have been right. Possibly. Then why move it? Marianne's answer came without hesitation. Because it is mine. Lady Mercer watched her carefully. Marianne continued, quieter now. I sent him away because he made a decision about my life without me. I will not turn an old instruction into law merely because it came from a man I trust. The present tense hurt less than she expected. A man I trust. Not trusted. Lady Mercer departed soon afterward. Marianne waited until the front door closed, then went upstairs alone. She unlocked her bedroom and crossed to the work basket beside the window. The lid opened softly. Beneath the folded blue ribbon and next to the packet of needles lay the torn ivory glove exactly as she had left it. The split seam at the right forefinger remained open. The blue-grey cotton repair near the thumb was unchanged. The worn cream silk lining still showed beneath the damaged edge. Marianne lifted it with both hands and carried it downstairs herself. Agatha was waiting in the small back sitting room beside her travelling writing case. Martha Pike had entered moments earlier with fresh linen and now stood near the open door, close enough to see Marianne place the glove inside a plain envelope. Marianne sealed it carefully. Then she wrote her full name across the flap so that any attempt to open and reseal it would disturb the writing. She held the envelope out to Agatha. Keep it for me. Agatha accepted it. In full view of Marianne and Martha, she opened the small locked compartment inside the travelling writing case, placed the sealed envelope within, and turned the brass key. Beside the bow was a shallow scratch from an old accident. Marianne noticed it because Agatha had complained about the mark for months. Keep the key with you, Marianne said. I intend to. Martha lowered her gaze to the folded linen in her arms. Her face revealed nothing then. She left the room several moments later. Near 4 in the afternoon, a servant came to say that a lady's maid had called at the side entrance, asking specifically for Martha Pike. Marianne looked up from the book she had not been reading. Whose maid? Miss Harrow's. Miss. Agatha went still. Marianne did not move. Has Martha gone to speak with her? Yes, miss. The visitor did not enter the house. She remained at the side entrance for less than 10 minutes. When Martha returned through the passage afterward, Marianne happened to be crossing the hall. The maid stopped too quickly. Her face was pale. Is something wrong? Marianne asked. No, miss. Martha tightened her fingers around her apron. Nothing. The answer came too fast. Marianne looked at her for one quiet moment, then let her pass. She did not accuse. She did not question further. Not without proof. Upstairs, the travelling writing case remained locked. The sealed glove rested inside it. Agatha still possessed the scratched brass key. The anonymous note, Lady Densmore's signed statement, and Cecily's calling card remained in Marianne's reticule. Lady Mercer still held the widow's signed statement and the false ivory strip. Julian's note remained unanswered in Marianne's writing desk. Every object still had one place, but now Martha had seen where something belonging to Marianne had been locked away, and Cecily's lady's maid had come asking for her afterward. Marianne looked toward the staircase and remembered the 4 words on the back of Cecily's card. Get the glove before Friday. Tomorrow was Friday. Friday morning began with a missing key. Agatha discovered it shortly before 9:30 when she went upstairs to retrieve the sealed envelope containing Marianne's torn glove from the locked inner compartment of her traveling writing case. The case remained where she had left it. The lock showed no damage. The compartment was still closed, but the small brass key with the shallow scratch beside its bow was gone from the pocket of her dressing gown. By the time Marianne entered the room, Agatha had searched the dressing table, the carpet, the chair beside the bed, and 2 gowns she had not worn. I put it in the pocket myself, she said, yesterday afternoon. You saw me. I did. Marianne looked at the traveling case. The sealed envelope should still be inside. No one had opened the compartment. No one had forced the lock, yet the key was missing on the very morning after Cecily's calling card had warned, "Get the glove before Friday." Agatha followed Marianne's gaze. You think Martha took it. I think Martha was in this room yesterday when you locked something belonging to me inside the case. And Cecily's maid came asking for her afterward. Yes. Agatha's mouth tightened. That seems rather more than coincidence. Probably. You sound remarkably calm. I am trying not to accuse before asking. Marianne rang for Martha. The maid appeared several minutes later. She was already pale. She stopped just inside the open doorway and clasped her hands together. You sent for me, madam? Agatha did not answer. Marianne did. Yesterday, you were present when my aunt locked something belonging to me inside her traveling case. Martha's eyes lowered. Yes, miss. Later, Cecily Harrow's lady's maid came to the side entrance and asked for you. Yes, what did she want? Martha said nothing. Marianne waited. Silence stretched. Agatha shifted once, but did not interrupt. At last Martha whispered, She asked whether I had seen you put something away. Marianne felt the first piece settle into place. What did you tell her? Martha's breath shook. That I had seen Mrs. Bellrose lock an envelope belonging to you inside the small compartment of the traveling case. Agatha closed her eyes briefly. The knowledge path was clear now. Cecily's maid had not known first. Martha had told her. Marianne kept her voice steady. Why, she said. Miss Harrow knew my mother was behind on her rent. Agatha looked sharply at her. How would Miss Harrow know that? I do not know, madam. What happened next? Marianne asked. Martha twisted her fingers together. Her maid said Miss Harrow could help. I asked what she wanted, and the key. Agatha went very still. What exactly did she ask you to do? Only to lend it for a day. Martha's voice broke. She said nothing would be harmed. She said the key would be returned before night. How much? Marianne asked. Martha looked at her. 2 guineas. Agatha drew a sharp breath. You took money to steal from me. Martha flinched as though struck by the words. Marianne raised one hand. Not to silence Agatha forever, only long enough to finish the truth. Did you accept? Martha nodded. Yes, miss. When did you take the key? This morning, while I was helping Mrs. Bellrose dress. The dressing gown was on the chair. I knew the key was in the pocket. What did you do with it? A little after 9, I took it to the side entrance. Marianne's pulse slowed. Who received it? Miss Harrow's lady's maid. Did you see Miss Harrow? No. Did her maid say what would happen next? No, only that the key would be returned before night. Agatha gave a short, humorless laugh. How thoughtful. Martha began to cry, though silently. "I am sorry." Marianne looked at her. Poverty could explain fear. It could not make betrayal harmless. She knew that too well to pretend otherwise. "Did you know what was inside the case?" "No, miss, only that it belonged to you." "Did you know why they wanted it?" "No." "Did you ask?" Martha lowered her head. "No." The room became quiet. Marianne looked at the locked traveling case. The sealed envelope should still be inside, undisturbed. Cecily's maid had the key. Beyond that point, they had no proof. "You will tell the truth tonight," Marianne said. Martha looked up. "Tonight?" "Lady Mercer is gathering those involved in this matter." Agatha turned toward Marianne. "You have decided to go?" "Yes." Marianne looked back at Martha. "You will say exactly what you told us. No more, no less." Martha nodded through tears. "I will. You will not say you gave the key to Cecily, because you did not. You gave it to her lady's maid." "Yes, miss. We will follow facts only as far as they go." Martha's shoulders shook once. "I understand, and you should understand something else. Fear for your mother explains why 2 guineas mattered. It does not erase what you did." "I know." "Good." Marianne turned away before remorse became another kind of spectacle. Downstairs, Julian's note remained inside her writing desk in the separate compartment where she had placed it. "I will not call unless invited. I will not inquire unless asked. But if you need me, I will come." For days, she had left it unanswered. Now the torn glove was sealed inside a locked case. The marked key was gone, and Cecily's calling card had predicted the attempt before Friday arrived. Marianne sat at the desk and took out Julian's note. She read it once. Then she turned over a fresh sheet of paper and wrote 5 words. "I am asking you to come." She sealed the message and sent it by footman. Julian arrived within the hour. When he entered the drawing room, Agatha was present, and the door remained open. He stopped several feet from Marianne. "You asked me to come?" "Yes." "Then I am here." No question about forgiveness. No assumption that the distance between them had disappeared. Marianne placed Cecily's calling card on the table with the penciled message facing upward. "The key to my aunt's traveling case is missing." Julian's expression sharpened, but he did not interrupt. "The torn glove is sealed inside that case. Martha saw my aunt lock the envelope away yesterday. Later, Cecily's lady's maid came to the side entrance and asked Martha whether something belonging to me had been put inside. Martha told her yes." Julian's gaze shifted toward Agatha, then back to Marianne. "And then she offered Martha 2 guineas for the key. Did Martha accept?" "Yes." "When was the key handed over?" "A little after 9 this morning." "To whom?" "Cecily's lady's maid." Martha did not see Cecily. Julian absorbed each fact without reaching beyond it. Then he asked, "What do you want me to do?" The question changed the room. Marianne looked at him. "Come tonight." "Yes." "Stand beside me if I ask." "Yes." "Do not speak for me unless I cannot speak for myself." Something painful and proud moved through his expression. "You will speak, probably, certainly." She almost smiled. Almost. Then she continued, "Lady Mercer still holds the widow's signed statement and the false ivory strip locked in her escritoire. I have the anonymous note, Lady Densmore's signed statement, and Cecily's calling card in my reticule. The torn glove remains sealed inside my aunt's locked traveling case. And Martha? She will speak for herself." Julian inclined his head. "Good." Marianne watched him. "You are not going to tell me to move the case again?" "No." "Or send men to watch Cecily?" "No." "Or make inquiries without asking?" Pain crossed his face. He did not look away. "No." The answer was enough. That evening, Lady Mercer's drawing room held fewer people than the earlier confrontation, but every person present mattered. Lady Mercer stood near the centre table. Lady Wexford was there, pale and rigid. Lady Densmore sat beside Agatha. Mrs. Vane remained near the wall. Martha waited at the back of the room, frightened but present. Agatha herself carried the locked travelling writing case and did not surrender it to anyone. Marianne arrived, wearing the pale grey gloves. Her reticule held the anonymous note, Lady Densmore's signed statement, and Cecily's calling card. Julian entered separately several minutes later and took a place near the edge of the room, close enough to be seen and far enough not to command it. Cecily noticed him at once. "How touching," she said. "You brought your protector." Marianne met her eyes. "No." The room quieted. "I asked him to come." Julian did not move. Cecily's smile tightened. "Then perhaps we may finally settle this." She turned toward a small table and lifted a folded paper. "I have a statement from the shop that sold me a pair of ivory gloves 3 seasons ago." Marianne looked at the document, then at Cecily. "And what do you believe it proves?" Cecily held her gaze, enough to make hiding the glove impossible. Then she placed the statement on the table between them. "Now show us the glove. Now show us the glove." Cecily's voice was quiet enough to sound composed, but Marianne had learned that composure and truth were not the same thing. She looked at the folded shop statement on Lady Mercer's table and at Cecily. "Not yet." Lady Wexford shifted near the fireplace. "Marianne, surely this has gone on long enough." "It has gone on too long," Marianne said. "That is why I will not let the final question be answered before the others are." Cecily gave a faint laugh. "You are delaying because you know the statement proves the glove was mine." Marianne looked at the paper. "It proves that a shop sold you a pair of ivory gloves 3 seasons ago. The same color, the same sort, and perhaps the same size." Marianne held her gaze. "None of that proves ownership of my glove." Lady Mercer stepped closer to the table. "Miss Harrow, does the shop statement mention a blue-grey cotton repair near the thumb?" Cecily said nothing. "A worn cream silk lining?" Marianne asked. Silence answered again. "A split seam at the right forefinger?" Cecily's mouth tightened. Marianne continued. "Then the paper proves you once purchased ivory gloves. Nothing more." Julian stood near the edge of the room, exactly where Marianne had asked him to stand. He had not spoken. He had not moved closer. His silence felt different now. Not distance, discipline. Marianne turned to Lady Densmore. "Will you tell them what you told me?" Lady Densmore rose. Her hands trembled, but her voice held. "Miss Harrow told me directly that His Grace had given Miss Bellrose £50 after Lady Wexford's first gathering. She asked me to repeat it to Mrs. Belham." Cecily's face hardened. "That is false." Lady Densmore looked at her. "No." Marianne removed the signed statement from her reticule and placed it on the table. "Lady Densmore wrote and signed the same account in my presence." Lady Mercer nodded. "I have seen it." Marianne then removed Cecily's calling card and turned it over so the penciled words faced the room. "Get the glove before Friday." Lady Wexford read them slowly. Cecily looked at the card, then at Marianne. "Anyone could have written that." "Yes," Marianne said. "Which is why I did not accuse you because of 4 words." She turned toward Martha. "Tell them what happened yesterday and this morning." Martha stepped forward from the back of the room. Her face was pale, but she did not hide. "Yesterday, I saw Mrs. Bellrose lock a sealed envelope belonging to Miss Bellrose inside the small compartment of her travelling writing case. Later, Miss Harrow's lady's maid came to the side entrance and asked whether I had seen Miss Bellrose put something away. Cecily's eyes moved toward her. Martha swallowed. I told her I had seen the envelope locked in the case. And then, Marianne asked. She said Miss Harrow knew my mother was behind on her rent. She offered me 2 guineas if I would lend her the key for 1 day. Agatha stood beside the travelling case, her expression severe. Did you accept? Martha lowered her head. Yes, madam. When did you take the key? Marianne asked. This morning, while I was helping Mrs. Bellrose dress. And to whom did you give it? Miss Harrow's lady's maid, a little after 9, at the side entrance. Marianne looked at Cecily. Martha has not said she gave the key to you. Cecily lifted her chin. Because she did not. No, she did not. Marianne paused. Did your lady's maid give it to you? No. The answer came instantly. Julian's gaze shifted toward Cecily, but he remained silent. Marianne said, Then you will not object if Lady Mercer witnesses the contents of your reticule. A murmur moved through the room. Cecily's face changed. You have no right. You are correct. Marianne's voice remained calm. I have no right to search your belongings. I am asking whether you will permit a neutral witness to see whether my aunt's key is among them. This is insulting. So was accusing me of theft. Cecily's fingers closed around the reticule hanging from her wrist. You expect me to submit to a servant's word? No, I expect you to answer a simple question. Cecily looked toward Lady Wexford. You cannot allow this. Lady Wexford's face had gone pale. Cecily, if you have not seen the key, let Lady Mercer look. The room became very quiet. Cecily stood rigid for 1 breath, then 2. Very well. She opened the reticule herself. You will see how absurd this is. Before handing it over, she reached inside to remove a folded handkerchief and the receipt that accompanied the shop's statement. Something metallic caught against the clasp. Lady Mercer saw it first. Stop! Cecily froze. Marianne did not move closer. Lady Mercer? Lady Mercer bent slightly, looking directly into the open reticule without touching anything. There is a brass key inside. Cecily's face emptied of color. That is not possible. Agatha spoke from beside the writing case. Does it have a scratch beside the bow? Lady Mercer looked more closely. Yes. Cecily stepped back. Many keys are scratched. Marianne met her eyes. Then let us test this one. Lady Mercer used a clean handkerchief to remove the key and placed it on the table. Agatha identified the shallow mark beside the bow before anyone handed the key to her. Then, under the eyes of every witness present, she inserted it into the traveling writing case. It turned. No one spoke. Agatha opened the locked compartment. Inside lay the sealed envelope exactly where she had placed it. Marianne's full name still crossed the flap. The wax seal remained intact. Marianne took the envelope herself. For 1 moment, she felt the weight of every meaning others had forced upon the object inside. Poverty, pity, manipulation, theft. Then she broke the seal and removed the torn ivory glove. The split seam at the right forefinger remained open. The blue-gray cotton repair near the thumb was unchanged. The worn cream silk lining showed beneath the damaged edge. Lady Mercer crossed to her escritoire and returned with the widow's signed statement and the false ivory strip, both still in her custody. She placed them beside the real glove. Marianne turned the glove so the lining could be seen. The woman who repaired this glove last winter identified the thread, the repair, and the lining. She wrote and signed her account voluntarily. She pointed to the false strip. This is Kid. The lining of my glove is silk. Lady Wexford looked at Cecily. Why did you say it matched? Cecily stared at the table. I was told it did. By whom? Cecily said nothing. Marianne removed the anonymous note from her reticule. There is one more truth to establish. That was me. Mrs. Vane stepped away from the wall. Lady Wexford turned sharply. The quiet companion clasped her hands before her. I sent the note. Marianne looked at her. Why? Because I heard Miss Harrow tell Lady Densmore the exact amount. I was near the music room door. Cecily's voice came cold. You had no right to listen. Mrs. Vane flinched but did not retreat. You spoke loudly enough for cruelty. I listened quietly enough for truth. Lady Wexford stared at her companion. Why did you not come to me? Mrs. Vane's expression changed. Because I have served in your household 11 years, my lady, and I knew which discomforts were expected to remain invisible. Shame crossed Lady Wexford's face. Marianne asked, Did you know about the key? No. The glove's location? No. His Grace's inquiries into my finances? No. Marianne believed her because Mrs. Vane claimed only what she could know. At last Marianne turned to Cecily. Why? Cecily's composure cracked, but only slightly. You know why? I want to hear what you are willing to say. Cecily looked at Julian, then back at Marianne. You had less than I did. Less money. Fewer gowns. Fewer invitations. Her voice tightened. And still they spoke of your dignity as though it made you better. Marianne said nothing. Cecily's breath shook. Then he noticed you. The room held its silence. Marianne understood the rest. So you needed what he saw in me to be false. Cecily looked away. That was answer enough. Marianne's voice softened. You wanted people to see what you needed me to be. Lady Wexford closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, she faced Cecily. You will return to your mother in the country tomorrow. I will no longer sponsor your invitations, repeat your explanations, or permit my drawing room to be used for cruelty disguised as concern. Cecily stared at her. You cannot mean that. I do. It was not ruin. It was consequence. The loss of access, sponsorship, and borrowed influence. The very things Cecily had used against other women. She left without another word. No one applauded. Marianne was grateful. Justice required truth and consequence, not spectacle. Martha remained near the wall, crying quietly. Agatha looked at her. You will not remain in my immediate service. Martha bowed her head. I understand. Marianne said, Your reference will state that you confessed before being publicly accused and agreed to testify truthfully. Martha looked up in shock. Miss Bellrose, fear explains a choice. It does not erase it. Neither does one wrong choice require me to destroy your future. One by one, the others departed. Lady Mercer kept the widow's statement and the false ivory strip in her custody. Agatha remained in the adjoining room, with Lady Mercer both within sight through the open doors. Marianne stood near the center table holding the torn glove. Julian waited several feet away until she looked at him. Only then did he approach. You did not need me to save you, he said. I knew you would not. Marianne studied him. Then, why did you come? His composure broke by the smallest degree. Because you asked me. The simplicity of it almost undid her. She looked down at the torn glove. And if I ask something harder, I will answer. Marianne raised her eyes. What is the thing you were afraid to name? Silence passed between them. Then Julian said, Love. Her breath stopped. Not pity, not charity, not gratitude for being needed. His voice lowered. Love, though I know now that loving you gives me no right to decide for you. Marianne's eyes burned. And if I am still angry, then be angry. If I do not forgive quickly, then I will wait without making your patience a debt. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then Marianne held out the torn glove. Julian did not take it. Are you certain? Yes. Only then did he open his hand. Marianne placed the glove in his palm. For the first time, the object changed possession because she chose it. "This is not surrender," she said. Julian closed his fingers around it carefully. "I know." Marianne held his gaze. "It is trust." His answer came quietly. "I know that too." And when she stepped closer, he waited until she did. 3 months later, the torn ivory glove rested beneath glass on Julian's writing desk, preserved only because he had asked Marianne before placing it there. That mattered more than the walnut frame, the careful glass, or the fact that the split seam at the right forefinger, the blue-gray cotton repair near the thumb, and the worn cream silk lining remained exactly as they had been on the night she placed the glove in his hand and called it trust. London had moved on to newer scandals, as London always did, but the consequences of truth had not vanished with the gossip. Cecily Harrow remained in the country with her mother, no longer protected by Lady Wexford's sponsorship, and no longer welcomed into the rooms where she had once mistaken access for power. Lady Densmore had discovered that courage, once exercised, became easier to recognize in oneself. The widow who had repaired Marianne's glove kept her livelihood and gained several new clients after Lady Mercer praised her skill openly, never her need. Mrs. Vane left Lady Wexford's household with a strong reference and accepted a position as companion to an elderly countess in Hampshire, where silence was not expected as payment for security. Martha Pike found another place in service. Agatha's reference had not concealed her wrongdoing, but neither had it destroyed her future. Marianne had insisted upon that distinction. One wrong choice deserved consequence. It did not always deserve ruin. On a mild August morning, Marianne stood in the morning room of Julian's London residence, wearing the pale grey gloves he had given her months earlier. Agatha sat in the adjoining drawing room with the connecting door open, reading a letter and pretending not to listen. Propriety was satisfied. Barely. Julian stood near the desk, with one hand resting beside the framed torn glove. "You moved it," Marianne said. "I did, without asking me." His expression changed at once. Marianne allowed the silence to last one heartbeat. Then she added, "From the mantel to the desk." Julian looked at her carefully. "You are enjoying this." "A little. I deserve that, probably." He glanced toward the framed glove. "I moved it because you said the sunlight might damage the fabric." "That sounds suspiciously like listening." "I have been practicing." Marianne looked at him. 3 months had not erased what had happened between them. She had not wanted it erased. Forgiveness built upon forgetting seemed too fragile to trust. Julian had done the slower thing. He had changed his behavior where no audience could praise him for it. When matters touched her directly, he asked. When he was uncertain, he waited. When danger appeared, he told her what he saw instead of deciding what she must do. He had not become less protective. He had become more disciplined. That difference had allowed trust to return without demanding that Marianne betray herself to create it. "Why the desk?" she asked. Julian looked at the framed glove. "Because that is where I make decisions." An ominous answer, a useful reminder. Of what? His gaze returned to her. "That love does not make every decision mine." The honesty of it moved through her more deeply than any elaborate declaration could have done. Marianne looked away first, toward the open doorway where Agatha turned a page much too loudly. "My aunt is listening." "Your aunt has been listening since we entered." From the adjoining room came Agatha's dry voice. "Only because neither of you speaks loudly enough." Marianne closed her eyes briefly. Julian's mouth curved. The sound of Agatha folding the letter was followed by deliberate silence. Marianne turned back to him. "You said You wish to speak with me privately, as Mrs. Bellrose permits. That may be the greatest test of your influence yet. I have abandoned hope." Marianne smiled. Then she noticed the small case on the desk, beside the framed glove. Her pulse changed. Julian saw it. Of course he did. "You have noticed the box," he said. "I had hoped to conceal that fact. You looked directly at it. A grave tactical error." The humor softened, leaving something more vulnerable beneath it. Julian stepped closer, but stopped well before reaching her. "I have something to ask you." Marianne's heart began to beat harder. She had known this moment might come. Knowing had not made it less frightening. "Then ask." He looked at her as though the answer mattered enough to alter the shape of his life. For a duke, perhaps that was the rarest humility of all. "Before I do, there is something I want you to know." Marianne waited. "I loved you before I understood how badly protection can wound when it denies choice. I loved you when you sent me away. I loved you when you chose not to answer my note. And I loved you when you asked me to return." His voice remained steady, but his eyes did not hide what the words cost him. "I will love you if your answer today is no." Marianne felt her throat tighten. That is a dangerous way to begin a proposal. I have had worse beginnings. You once brought me gloves before, discovering whether I wished to receive them. I have reflected upon that, extensively, I hope. Painfully. She almost laughed. Julian reached toward the small case, then stopped. "May I?" Marianne understood the question. Yes, only then did he open it. Inside lay a sapphire ring, surrounded by small diamonds, elegant without ostentation. He did not take her hand. He held the ring where she could see it. "Marianne Bellrose, will you marry me?" She looked at the ring, then down at the pale grey glove covering her right hand. Once, she had hidden a damaged glove because she feared what others would think it revealed about her. Later, a new pair had taught her that accepting kindness was not surrender. Now there was nothing left to hide. Marianne removed the right glove herself and placed it on the desk beside the framed torn one. Then she held out her bare hand. "Yes," Julian did not move. "You are certain? Do not ruin this." A laugh escaped him, quiet and real. "I was told I should ask before acting." "Not repeatedly. The distinction is difficult. You will learn." He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit. Marianne looked at it, then at him. "Of course, it does. You sound offended. You have an unsettling history with correct measurements." This time, he laughed fully, and Agatha called from the adjoining room. "Has she accepted? Or must I continue pretending not to hear?" Marianne looked toward the open doorway. "I have accepted." Agatha entered at once. "Good. His Grace has looked terrified for 20 minutes. Julian glanced at her. "I had hoped I concealed it. From society, perhaps." Agatha's eyes softened as she looked at Marianne's bare hand and the ring upon it. "Not from people who love you." Nearly 4 months later, Marianne married Julian Ashcombe in the chapel at Alderwick Hall. The ceremony was small. Agatha stood beside her. Lady Mercer attended. There was no applause after the vows. Marianne had asked for none. What she wanted was quieter, and by then, Julian understood quiet things well. On the first evening after their wedding, Marianne entered the shared sitting room and found the framed torn glove on Julian's desk. Beside it lay the pale grey pair, neatly folded. A blank sheet of paper waited nearby. Julian stood by the fire. "What is that?" she asked. "Space. For what? Whatever comes next." Marianne looked at the framed glove. Once, she had hidden her hand because she believed damage made her easier to judge. Now the old seam remained visible, unchanged, with nothing left to prove. She crossed the room, and held out her bare hand. Julian took it only when she offered it, and there, beside the glove she had once concealed, and the gloves she had once feared to accept, Marianne let her fingers rest openly in his.